What if Jon Snow was never forced to grow up as a bastard because the truth was revealed the moment he was born? What if the child hidden in blood, fire, and fear was recognized from his first breath as Rhaegar Targaryen's son? No lies, no Winterfell shame, no years of being treated like a mistake. Because the second that truth comes out, Westeros changes forever. The rebellion doesn't end the same way. The Iron Throne becomes a battlefield of bloodlines, and the baby meant to be hidden in the shadows becomes the most dangerous name in the Seven Kingdoms. A prince born from war, a child claimed by dragon blood, and a realm forced to decide whether to crown him or kill him before he can grow. Subscribe if you are new on this channel. Also, if you love the Game of Thrones theories and what-ifs, please let me know on comment box. Also, if you have any story suggestions, feel free to write below. Now, let's start.
The first wind off the Red Mountains carried the smell of sage and salt, and under it, the faint iron tang of a wound that had not yet closed. Eddard Stark smelled all three and knew which mattered. He reined his Garron short on the switchback and looked down across the valley to the tower. It was a plain thing, 3 stories of pale stone stacked like loaves, a rows of red brick above the door and nothing else to soften it. His sister's hair had been the color of that brick once, when she was small and she laughed. He tried to remember her laughing and found only the memory of her voice saying his name, Ned, the way she had said it when she was angry, not scared. He held to that. He would not ride down to that tower with fear in his mouth. 6 men rode behind him. They had been 7 outside the Trident, and they had been a host at the Green Fork. Now they were 6. Martin Castle was the oldest among them and had not spoken since Storm's End. Howland Reed was the smallest and had not stopped watching the sky for half a day. The rest were boys who had only just learned how to bury friends. 3 will ride out to meet us, Ned said, and he knew it as surely as he knew north from south. They will not surrender, Lord Stark. Howland Reed's voice was soft as a heron's step on mud. There is more than 3. Ned looked at him. The little Cranugman's eyes were on the tower and not on the road. You see them. I see where they would stand if they were there. It was how Howland spoke. He had been that way since Harrenhal. Ned let the words settle into him like a stone dropping through dark water and did not ask further. They rode on. The Kingsguard came out when they had crossed the dry bed of the brook. 3 men in white cloaks on 3 weary horses, their armor dented and dusty, their bearings perfect. The tallest of them Ned knew at once, though he had only seen him the once. Sir Arthur Dayne of Starfall, whose sword was called Dawn and whose name was spoken even in the north. Beside him rode Sir Oswell Went, and beside him Sir Gerald Hightower, the White Bull, and he looked older than he should have, like a man who had not slept since a boy burned in King's Landing. They stopped across a length of stony ground. Behind them the tower stood silent. Lord Eddard. Hightower's voice was older than his face. You are far from home. Further than I ever meant to go, Ned said. We sent for the king, Sir Oswell said. Rhaegar is dead on the Trident. We sent for the king, Sir Oswell repeated, and Ned understood him then and did not answer. The sun came over the shoulder of the mountain and lit the white of their cloaks. Sir Arthur held up his left hand, palm outward, and Ned thought for one moment that he was going to yield, and for a breath he dared to hope. Then Dayne lifted his right hand, and his fingers touched the hilt of the great sword at his back, and Dawn came free of its scabbard with a sound like a bell struck under water. I should have wished, Sir Arthur said, almost gentle, to meet you in better company. And I you. Ned said and drew ice. What followed was not the story that would be sung. What followed was 7 men and 3, and a dry bed of stones that drank the spilling of them. Martin Castle died first, and then Ethan Glover, and then William Dustin. And Ned took a wound in his side deep enough that his left arm went numb for an hour after. Howland Reed, whom Sir Arthur had almost forgotten to count, was quicker than any of them had the right to expect, and at the end he was the reason Sir Arthur fell, not felled but held, a poisoned crannog dart in the meat of his thigh that would not let him stand. Sir Oswell went lay dead upon his own sword. Sir Gerald Hightower knelt because he could not rise, and there was blood bubbling at the corner of his mouth when he lifted his chin to look at Ned Stark. "Is the boy inside?" Ned said because he had to say it, because if he did not say it he would forget how to speak at all. "She asked us to let no one pass," the White Bull said. "So no one passed." Ned stepped over him. He did not look down at Sir Arthur, who had dropped Dawn only when his leg had given out, and whose eyes were open and aware and watching the door of the tower. He did not look at Howland, who had sunk to his knees in the stones and was whispering a prayer to gods that had no names in the south. The door was oak banded in iron. It opened under his hand like a gate that had been waiting. On the stair he heard her, not her voice, her breathing. He had heard that breathing as a boy when she had the summer fever and he had sat by her bed to frighten away the things under the wardrobe. He climbed with the taste of iron in his mouth and the weight of ice like a second man on his back. The top room was round. A narrow window faced east to the mountains. Birthing blood had been thrown into a basin and was congealing in it like a tongue of red wax, and the girl on the bed was pale and smaller than she had ever been. They had braided her hair and tied it off her face so it would not stick to her brow. Someone kind had done that, though Ned could not imagine who. "Ned," she said, "I'm here." She lifted her hand and he crossed the room and took it. He almost could not bear how light it was. There was a second sound in the room then, one he had not heard and had not thought to listen for, a sound no larger than the mewl of a kitten. In a low wooden cradle by the bed, wrapped in a swaddling band of sky-blue linen, a baby was looking at the ceiling with the puzzled dignity of something newly born into a room it did not yet trust. "Is he?" Ned said. "Yours now," Lyanna said, and began to cry. He knelt. Her hand was small and cold in his. "Lya, listen to me, listen. We ride tonight. We'll put you in a litter, we'll go slow, we'll—" "Hush." She was smiling. It was a bad, thin smile, and her teeth were red at the gum. "Hush, Ned, hush. I won't ride anywhere. Don't lie to me." "You were always a bad liar." "I can't," he said. "Lya, I can't." "Then don't." She turned her head. Her eyes were the gray of the Stark eyes, the same gray as his, and beyond the gray they were very far away. "Promise me." He waited. She drew one slow breath, and then another, and in between them he understood with a cold and terrible clarity that whatever she was going to make him promise was going to change the shape of his life. "Promise me you will love him," she said. "Promise me, Ned. Swear it." "Not because he is what they will say he is, because he is mine." "I swear it," he said. "By the old gods and the new, by the tree at Winterfell. He is yours and he is mine. He will be loved. And Ned, yes, he is not a lie." He did not understand her, not in that moment. Later he would, and it would matter. "There is a letter," she said, "under the bed. Ashara had it written. Arthur signed it, and Oswell and Hightower and the Septon. The Septon is named Maynard, of Oldtown. His hand is on it too. Rhaegar," her breath caught. "Rhaegar set his seal." "Find the letter, Ned. Take it. Don't hide him. Don't put him in a lie. If they must hate him, let them hate him in the light." He shook his head. "Lya, Robert hates me already." She made that thin, bad smile again. "He only does not know it yet. Promise me the other thing." "What other thing?" "That you won't let them hide him, that he will know his name. Even if they make him write a different one in the ledgers, he will know. Promise." "I promise." "His name is Yeharries," she said. She closed her eyes a moment. Her mouth moved without sound. Then she said, "I called him John. I could not stop calling him John. Your brother when we were small. I remember. Tell him his mother called him John. I will, promise. I promise." She let out a breath that was longer than any breath a body her size should have been able to hold. When she breathed again, it was smaller. And when she breathed the third time, it was smaller yet. And on the fourth breath she did not breathe, and then she did, but weakly. And then she lay still while Ned held her hand and stared at the baby in the cradle. He was still staring at the baby when the stair creaked behind him and a woman's voice, low and Dornish and tired, said, "Lord Stark, he is not dead, the babe, I mean. Look at me a moment, my lord. The babe is not dead, nor is your sister quite not yet. The bleeding has slowed, she may still." She stopped herself. "I should not lie to you. It is worse than I would say, but it is not yet done." He looked up. Ashara Dane stood in the doorway in a simple woolen gown with the sleeves pushed up past her elbows. Her hands were bloody to the wrists. Her eyes were the purple that had made men write bad poetry in the Reach, and they were rimmed red now and very steady. "My lady," Ned said, because he could not think what else to say. "Sit with her," Ashara said. "Hold the babe if you can. I will be at the foot of the bed. I have seen this before." Her mouth tightened. "There are riders coming up the pass, not many, 5, perhaps 6. They do not fly a banner, I do not know whose they are." Ned began to rise. "Stay," Ashara said. "Please, Lord Stark, please, I will go. The Cranugman below is still breathing. He can, Oh, there is someone at the door." A shout from the courtyard below, not a Northman's voice. Dornish, the lilt of it like a blade turned edgewise. Ned stood. The room tilted. He put his hand on the post of the bed. "Stay," Ashara said again, and then, as if the word hurt her, "Please." And so it was that Ned was on the stair, ice in his left hand and the babe in the curve of his right arm under the swaddling, when he met Prince Oberyn Martell of Dorne coming up. They stopped 3 steps apart. Oberyn was dust to the knees, and there was a gash, shallow and old, along his jaw. He had a short spear across his back and a curved dagger on his hip. And he took in, all at once, the Northman who had just killed 3 of the finest swords in the realm, and the baby, and the smell of birthing blood coming down the stairwell. And he did not move for a count that Ned could hear in his own pulse. Then Oberyn Martell bowed, not deeply, not mockingly either. He bowed as a man bows who has come a long way to a thing he was afraid to find. "Lord Stark," he said. "I had thought if there was a child that I would have to fight someone for him. I am glad and a little surprised to find that the someone has done most of the fighting for me." "Prince Oberyn," Ned said. "May I see him?" Ned did not move. Oberyn Martell sighed very softly and sat down on the step. "My brother," he said, "sent me for this boy, or for this boy's sister. My brother does not know which, and my brother does not lightly send me anywhere. Elia," he stopped. His throat worked. "Elia had a letter from Rhaegar. Not the last letter. Not the letter after the trident, which she never got. The letter before. It said, my brother says, that Rhaegar had done a thing, and that the thing was witnessed, and that if the thing was true, then whatever child Rhaegar's friend bore would be true-born. Lord Stark, I am not here for a war. I am here because my sister died with pitch on her hair and a spear through her breast, and her children died in her arms, and my brother, who is a man of ciphers and not of anger, sent me to find if there was one more. The child of," he swallowed, "the other woman. I hated her, Lord Stark, when she was alive. Please tell me she was kind at the end." Ned looked at him. The Dornish prince was 30 years old and looked 50 and looked 19, all at once, like a man who had not had time to decide. "She was not kind," Ned said, because he would not lie to this man on this stair. "She did not live long enough. She was afraid and she was in pain and she called for my brother and for me. But she was not cruel. She loved her child. That is all I know of her in the end." Oberyn nodded once, as if he had been given a key he did not quite want. "May I see him now?" Ned lowered the babe so that the Dornish prince could see into the swaddling. Oberyn did not reach for the child. He only looked. Something in his face went tight and then smoothed, the way the face of a man goes smooth when he has made a decision he will not unmake. "He has her eyes," Oberyn said. "The Stark eyes. I expected," he laughed once without mirth. "I expected silver hair, I think. A little fool of me." "There is a letter," Ned said. "There is a letter," Oberyn agreed. "We have part of one copy in Sunspear. Rhaegar sent it by 3 routes and only one came through, and that one was missing the last page. We suspect the spider. My brother wishes to complete the copy. May I?" "I have not seen it yet," Ned said. "My sister said it is under the bed." Oberyn rose. "With your leave, Lord Stark, let us be witnesses together." They went up the stair. It was Ashara who found it, folded in oilcloth and wrapped in a scarf of her own bright yellow linen, a thing meant to be seen if one was looking and meant to be overlooked if one was not. The oilcloth crackled when Ashara pulled it free, and the parchment inside was heavy and good, the kind that is used when a man wants a document to live longer than his body. Ned sat on the stool by the bed. Lyanna's breathing was very shallow now. He held the baby against his chest. The baby smelled of nothing at all, which is how newborns smell, and the clean blankness of that smell undid him a little. He watched Oberyn spread the parchment on the chest at the foot of the bed. The letter was in 2 parts. The first part was a decree. It was written in the stiff hand of a man who believed that writing a thing carefully would make it true, which, Ned would come to learn, was Rhaegar Targaryen's chief failing as a prince. The decree said that Rhaegar of House Targaryen, the eldest surviving son of King Aerys II, in accordance with a precedent of his royal forefathers and upon the Council of Septons, had set aside his first marriage, to Elia of House Martell, for lack of issue sufficient to the needs of prophecy. It said the setting aside was done by the writ of the High Septon's proxy. Here Oberyn snorted softly, and by his own royal seal, and that the Lady Elia was to suffer no diminishment in station, and no loss of her dower, and no harm to her children, who remained heirs of the prince's body by his first and honorable wife. The second part was a marriage contract. It said that Rhaegar of House Targaryen, being a widower in all but fact and free under the laws and customs of House Targaryen to take another wife, had taken to wife Lyanna of House Stark, with her willing consent, by the ceremonies of the 7, in a sept near a stream called the Ruby Ford, upon such and such a day of the 3rd moon of the year. It was signed by the Septon Maynard of Oldtown, witnessed by Sir Arthur Dane, Sir Oswell Went, and Sir Gerald Hightower, and signed in a small, careful hand by a Lyanna Stark, whose signature Ned remembered from letters she had sent him from Winterfell when she was 12. And it bore the great seal of the Prince of Dragonstone in dark red wax cracked once along the bottom. Oberyn looked at Ned across the parchment. "Well," he said, "and nothing else." "Robert will not believe it," Ned said. "Robert will say it is a forgery." "Robert," Oberyn said, "will be told by the High Septon in King's Landing, who is a coward, and who has already sent Doran a copy of Septon Maynard's contemporaneous journal as a gesture of goodwill to my brother, who will then show it to Robert." Ned turned the parchment over. The second side was a list of names. Witnesses beyond the 3. Ashara Dane, a Dornish woman named Alyra Gargallen, a Maester's apprentice whose name Ned did not recognize. A knight of Blackhaven, of all places, who had attended Rhaegar at the tourney at Harrenhal and apparently later. "A careful man," Oberyn said. "My prince." "My sister's husband. A careful man when it suited him, a careless man at all the other times." "Why did they hide him here then?" Ned said. "If it was to be known, it was to be known when he was ready to know it," Oberyn said. "He meant, I think, to ride north from the Trident and sit a council and tell every lord in Westeros in his own voice. He meant to make Aerys abdicate. He meant to come to Starfall with his second wife on his arm and eat pomegranates and let the court go mad. He would not have had the courage, perhaps, but he meant it. Oberyn looked at the bed, at Lyanna. She did not know he was dead at first, he said quietly. I passed through Starfall. Ashara said she only knew the king was dead. She thought he meant Ares. For a week she thought it was over, that he was coming for her. Ned said nothing. I will not pretend this has made me love him, Oberyn said, but he did one thing right. He wrote it down. Lyanna made a small sound. Ned turned. She had opened her eyes. She was looking at the ceiling and through it. She lifted her hand an inch off the blanket, and Ned caught it with his free hand and held it. Ned, she said, I'm here. Don't hide him. I won't swear. I swear. Her eyes found Oberyn. There was a moment in which Ned thought she was going to be frightened, but she was a Stark and she was past fear. You are the Red Viper, she said. Once, Oberyn said. Yes. You hated her, the other one. I loved her, Oberyn said. I hated you. Lyanna said. I hated me too. Oberyn laughed, a sudden broken laugh that sounded like a man coming up for air. Then he went to his knees at the foot of the bed. Lady Lyanna of House Stark, he said. In the presence of your brother and the wolf child, I swear upon my sister's bones and in her name that I will not suffer any hand that is lifted against this boy to go unbroken. I swear it in Sunspear and in the Water Gardens and at the Gate of the Sun. Do you hear me? I hear you, Lyanna said. Good, good. She looked then at Ned. I called him John, she said again. Don't forget. I won't forget. She closed her eyes. She did not open them again. The Dornish sellsword who had ridden in with Oberyn and had waited in the courtyard came up the stairs afterward. He was a scarred old man with a spear on his back and a flask of pear brandy in a leather pouch, and he went to Ashara Dane, and they stood together and held hands and did not speak for a long time. Howland Reed climbed the stair last, limping, the dart wound in his shoulder bound with moss. He did not look at Lyanna's face. He looked instead at the baby in Ned's arms and nodded slowly, as though confirming a thing he had already seen in a dream. We should go, Howland said. They will have sent riders to Starfall by now. Lord Dane will come with 100 men. Not to fight us, my lord, but to see her home. Ned did not answer. Lord Stark, Howland said. Yes, Ned said. He looked down at the baby. The baby was asleep. The baby had a small crease between his eyes as if he disapproved of the world in a private and considered way. Tell me what to do. Ned said. Howland Reed and Oberyn Martell and Ashara Dane looked at one another. Then Oberyn, who was the southernmost of them and therefore the least afraid of the question of what to tell a king, said, Lord Stark, you will take him to the north. You will raise him there. You will not hide him, and you will not hide the letter. You will take the letter first to King's Landing in a sealed box, and you will place it before Robert Baratheon and before Jon Arryn and before your wife's father, and you will say to them, This child exists. This child will not disappear. This child is under the protection of House Martell, whose last princess died in the Red Keep. You will bargain for his life, and you will be surprised, I think, at the price the king will accept, because the king loved your sister once, and he would like to believe that he loved her well. That is the hardest bargain you will ever strike. My brother and I will give you whatever weight you need to strike it. And if Robert will not accept, Ned said, then, said Oberyn Martell, there will be another war. Another war, Ned said, for Elia, Oberyn said, only for Elia. I will not ride for an infant, but the infant will serve, and the infant will be safe, and my brother will not mind either way. Ned looked at him a long time. There was a thing Oberyn was not saying, which was that Dorne could not afford a war just then, and that a bargain would be better for all of them, and that the Prince of Dorne loved elaborate bargains more than he loved almost anything in the world. But there was also a thing Oberyn was saying, which was that the boy had walls now, and Ned did not have to hold up those walls by himself. "I will ride for King's Landing," Ned said. "You will ride for Starfall first," Ashara Dane said quietly. "Please, my lord, for my brother. And for your sister. I cannot send her home on a mule." Ned bent his head. "For Starfall first," he said. They wrapped Lyanna Stark in a cloak of dark gray wool, for she had hated the color red since the tourney at Harrenhal, and Ashara went down to see to the litter. Howland Reid, who had no magic in him that any of them could see but who had always been a little outside the world, stood for a time by the window looking at the east and then said only, "A storm is coming out of Bravos by midsummer. Nothing to do with us. But a storm. A storm." Oberyn said, amused. "You'll see," Howland said. It was after midnight when they came down out of the pass. They rode slowly because of the litter. The baby cried once and Ashara hushed him. Ned held the reins of his horse in his right hand, and the hilt of ice in his left hand, though there was no one to fight now. And the stars above them were the hard, bright stars of Dorne in summer, and the air smelled of sage and of cold. At Starfall, the sword Dawn was set upon the altar in the sept under glass, to wait for the next sword of the morning, because Sir Arthur, when Howland's poison wore off, had woken long enough to rasp that he yielded, that he had yielded, that he would swear upon any altar the Stark of Winterfell set before him that he would never lift Dawn again. And the Lord of Starfall had taken his brother's hand and wept. Sir Arthur would live out his days at Starfall as a guest who could not be called captive and could not be called free, and he would teach swordsmanship in the sept yard to boys who did not know the name of the sword hanging above them. Ned Stark found, when he watched this, that he could not hate the man. On the second night at Starfall, Ned had gone to see him alone. The sword of the morning had been laid out on a low pallet in a stone cell that was not a cell, a room without bars but also without a key on the inside of its lock. And Sir Arthur had been propped up on pillows and given wine with willow in it. And his right leg was wrapped from hip to calf in bandages and splints. He was pale. He smiled tiredly when Ned came in. "Lord Stark," he said. "Sit." Ned sat. "I am sorry about the captain," Arthur Dane said. "The older one, he fought well. I killed him quickly. It was the best I could offer him. Martin Castle. Martin Castle." The knight shut his eyes and opened them. "I will remember his name." There was silence a while, in which the great carved arch of the cell's small window framed the night sky, and a shooting star drew its slow white scratch across it. "Why did you not send for me?" Ned said at last. "When she first knew she would die. Sir, why did you not send a raven?" "I would have come unarmed. You know that. I would have come alone." Arthur Dane's mouth tightened. "I argued for it," he said. "But—" Sir Gerald believed a Stark could not be spoken to while the Stark's father and brother lay unburied in the sept of Baelor. "Lord Stark, I will not lie to you for comfort. He was not wrong about that. You have killed 3 men in the last month who would have knelt to you, had you come up to them with no sword in your hand. You are the most dangerous kind of honest man. He did not think we could trust you. And you—" "I thought," Sir Arthur said, "that the lady would want her brother. Hightower outranked me. I had sworn an oath to obey him once, I suppose." He looked down at his splinted leg. "I suppose a man's last loyalty is always to the oath he made first, even when the oath he made last would serve him better." Ned was a long time answering. Then he said, "When my son is old enough to lift a sword, sir, I will send for you. You will teach him the long sword, and you will teach him Dawn, not to wield it but to know it. I will have him taught by the best blade living. It should have been his father's teaching. He'll have yours instead." Arthur Dane looked at him. The torches in the corridor burned low. "Lord Stark," he said, "you do me more honor than I deserve." "I do you," Ned said, "less honor than I would do if I could stop blaming you for being there, but I will do my best year by year to stop." "That," said Sir Arthur, "is a fair man's promise." They did not speak much longer. Ned rose and stood a moment in the doorway and looked at the night in the bed and at the narrow scratch of starlight across the floor. Then he closed the door and did not lock it, because there was no need. They buried Lyanna in Winterfell in the end, though Ashara Dane and the Lord of Starfall would have given her a place in the stone garden of Starfall and a white tree. "She is a Stark," Ned said, though it nearly choked him to say it. "She belongs at home." Ashara nodded as if she had known he would say that. She kissed the baby on the forehead, in the way of a woman kissing a stranger's child for the last time, and she gave Ned a small enamel pendant on a silver chain, a rose with a thorn across its stem. "For when he is old enough to ask his mother's name," she said. Ned would keep that pendant in a box on his desk at Winterfell for 14 years. It would come out only twice in those years. Both times it mattered. At Starfall, in the small library, Oberyn Martell took a fresh copy of the letter on good Dornish parchment and sealed it with a copy of Rhaegar's seal that the prince had kept in a drawer. And then he signed it, and Ashara signed it, and the Lord of Starfall signed it. And Sir Arthur signed it with his left hand because his right was splinted, and Howland Reed signed it with the stroke of a man who could not write much else but his name. Ned last signed it. "Now you have a weapon," Oberyn said. "I have a paper," Ned said. "In the Red Keep, Lord Stark, those are much the same." They rode north out of Dorne at the full of the moon. Oberyn rode the first 3 days with them, a courtesy, and then turned his horse eastward toward Sunspear. He did not say farewell. He said only, "When you reach the capital, send word to my brother by the Raven of House Alyrian. The Maester of Godsgrace is in our service. He is fat and he is bored, and he will ride you a fast bird. I will remember it. I liked your sister, Lord Stark." Oberyn said, surprising himself, it seemed, as much as Ned. "I do not know how I managed that, but I did." "She was hard to dislike," Ned said, "if you met her after she learned to ride." Oberyn laughed. "Safe journey, Lord of Winterfell," he said. "You will have ravens from me. Some of them will be lies. You will know which." He turned his horse. He did not look back. The dust of his passing hung in the road a long time because there was no wind in Dorne that morning. They came up the King's Road slowly. At every crossroads Ned sent a man ahead to hold a tavern for them so they could rest the babe. He did not trust the wet nurse Ashara had found them, who was a nervous girl from Blackmont and prone to weeping, until the 5th day, when the babe had a colic and Ned, who had raised no sons yet, was so useless at soothing him that the Blackmont girl snatched the child out of his arms with a cry of, "Oh, gods, my lord, give him here," and walked the little boy in a circle around the hearth of the common room for an hour while Ned watched and felt, for the first time since the tower, almost like laughing. At the Red Fork, they crossed at a ferry run by a toothless old man who would not take Ned's coin because, he said, he had fought in Robert's line at the Trident, and he could see, from across the river, that this was a lord who did not wish to be noticed. At a roadside, Septa walked out to Ned's column with a bowl of honeyed milk and asked only that the child be blessed. The Blackmont girl knelt and held John so the Septa could touch oil to his brow, and the Septa pronounced, in a thin voice that she seemed to surprise herself with, "He will be a sad boy, but he will be brave." Ned thanked her and rode on. He did not look back to see whether she had begun to weep. At Riverrun, where he could have stopped to see his good father, Ned did not stop. He sent a letter to Hoster Tully instead, short and truthful, and gave it to a boy on the road with 2 silver stags and instructions to hand it only to the Lord himself. In the letter, he named the child for the first time in his own writing, and he used both names, and he said nothing about Rhaegar and nothing about a tower, and he asked his good father to think kindly of his daughter Catelyn in the weeks to come, for they would be hard. He did not know yet how hard, but he had been a lord's son long enough to know that a man who rides home with a strange child is a man who rides home alone. At the inn at the crossroads south of King's Landing, Ned sent one of his men forward to the city with 3 letters, sealed with 3 different seals. The first was to John Arryn, his foster father, who was hand of the king. The second was to Stannis Baratheon, the master of ships, who was the king's brother and whom Ned did not love but trusted because Stannis could be trusted to read a document exactly as it was written and no other way. The third was to King Robert himself, and it was very short. That letter read, "Your Grace, I have come down out of Dorne with a living child, a dead sister, and a paper that will make you angry. I am lodged at the Crossroads Inn. I will ride to the city when you bid me ride, and not before. I beg only that you read the paper before you say what you will do. Your friend in mourning, Ned." He sealed it with the direwolf. He gave it to the rider. Then he sat in the corner of the common room of the inn and watched the Blackmont girl rock the baby in the firelight. The baby had opened his eyes. The eyes were darker than they had been in Dorne. They were already turning the iron gray of Winterfell. "John," Ned said, very quietly. The baby looked at him. It was foolish to think he understood, but the baby looked at him. Outside, a spring wind moved in the trees. Somewhere along the road, a rider was carrying a letter toward a king who had been a boy Ned had loved once and was not a boy anymore. A man in a traveler's cloak came into the common room then and ordered a cup of ale and stood at the bar with his back to the fire. He did not turn his head toward the corner where Ned sat. He paid in silver and he drank slowly. His cloak was dark but not black, and the edging on it was a very plain dull red that, if one had seen a great deal of cloaks, one might have recognized as the dull red of House Velaryon in mourning. He did not speak to anyone. He was there perhaps a quarter of an hour. When he left he did not finish his ale. Howland Reed watched him go. Howland had said very little since Starfall. He watched the door close and then leaned across the bench to Ned. "My lord," Howland said softly, "I saw him. There will be more of them, I know. They will not all be Velaryon." "I know," Ned said. Howland sat back. He looked at the baby in the Blackmont girl's arms. "There is something I have been thinking," he said, "since Harrenhal. I did not say it to you then because I was 15 and I was a guest at a feast that was too grand for me, and because nobody who looked like me ever told a thing to anybody who looked like your father. But I am telling you now. Do you remember the night of the laughing tree?" "I remember." "She gave that man back his shield before she went. The night whose squires beat me. She did not keep any trophy from him. She was not a cruel girl. I want that remembered." Ned looked at Howland and could not speak. "John should know it," Howland said. "When he is old enough, he will know it." Ned closed his eyes and, for the first time since the Tower of Joy, allowed himself to sleep. In that sleep he dreamed of his sister, not pale and not dying, but as she had been at 13, riding her gray mare along the White Knife at the first melt, mud to her knees, laughing. She turned her head toward him across the years, and opened her mouth to say a thing she had not yet had time to think. Then the dream ended, and he woke to the cry of the baby in the next room, and for a moment he did not know where he was, and then he knew. And then he was a man again, and he got up and went into the next room and picked the baby up and held him. "Hush, John," he said softly into the top of the boy's head. "Hush, we'll see the king tomorrow. Hush, we'll see the king." Chapter 2. The king's price. Robert Baratheon had not slept. He had fought the Greyjoy's son at his own table over a quail he did not want to eat, and he had thrown a cup of Arbor gold at a Velaryon cousin who had smiled the wrong way, and he had demanded a song and then demanded the singer stop. And then around the hour of the wolf, he had sent everyone out of the small hall and put his feet on a footstool and stared at the ceiling. On the ceiling of the small hall was a mural of the first dragon riders of House Targaryen. The conqueror was directly above the king's head, a thumb on the hilt of Blackfire. Robert did not remember which mad-eyed Targaryen had commissioned the painting. One of the late ones. He thought about having it plastered over. He thought about it every evening, and every evening he fell asleep looking up at it. And every evening when he woke, the first thing he saw was Aegon the dragon, looking down at him, unimpressed. Tonight he did not sleep. The letter from Ned Stark had come 3 nights ago. Jon Arryn had brought it into the small council chamber himself, in his own hand. Stannis had read a copy as well, and Stannis had gone white in the way Stannis went white when he was forced to admit that a law was in fact a law and had to be obeyed. You will see him. Jon Arryn had said to Robert in the kind of voice Jon Arryn used perhaps twice a year. I will kill him, Robert had said. You will see him, Jon Arryn had said. And if after you have seen him you still wish to kill him, you will speak to me before you do it. That had been 3 nights ago. Now the servants were lighting the braziers in the throne room for a dawn audience that Robert had not yet agreed to give. He swung his feet off the stool and stared at his boots and wondered how he had come to be 40 at 28. A page knocked. Your Grace, Lord Hand. Let him in. Robert growled. Jon Arryn came in. He was not quite 60 yet, but he moved as if he were 90. He took a stool without being asked. Robert, don't. Robert, listen to me. I raised you, listen to me now. Robert said nothing. You cannot kill this child, I will not allow it. Stannis will not allow it. Tywin Lannister will pretend not to allow it, but will gladly see you ruined for the attempt. The Martells will drink the pale drink they drink when they have decided on a war. I have spent 3 days keeping ravens out of the sky, and I can do it for 1 day more and not 1 day more than that. Do you understand me? A Targaryen, Robert said. A child. A Targaryen. A child, Jon Arryn repeated slowly. Who has committed no crime, and whose crime would in any case be inherited. And who is Robert? He is your Lyanna's son. Robert Baratheon did something that no man at court had ever seen him do, though there had been one time, long ago, at Storm's End, when a boy had seen him do it. He put his face in his hands and he wept, briefly and silently, and then he took his hands away and his face was dry and he was a king again. Bring me Ned Stark, he said. Bring him to the old throne room, not the one with the dragons on the ceiling. I will not have that boy brought to the foot of Aegon's chair. The old throne room is a ruin. Good. Jon Arryn stood. Robert, what? Be a king this morning, not a widower, not a friend. A king. 1 hour, that is all I ask. You ask a great deal, Robert said, for a hand. I have always asked a great deal, Jon Arryn said. That is why you chose me. Ned Stark rode up the street of steel alone at dawn. The city watch had been told to let him pass without escort. He had left his men at the Gate of the Gods, along with the Blackmont girl, and he carried Jon himself in a sling of Dornish linen across his breast. Jon was asleep. Jon slept through almost everything. He had slept through a storm at Harrenhal, and a spear fight between 2 drunk squires at So's Horn, and a minor earthquake at Maidenpool. Ned was beginning to think the boy had been born into the world with a talent for keeping still when the shouting started. At the great gate of the Red Keep Ned dismounted, and a steward in gold-trimmed livery, whose hands were trembling for reasons the steward himself did not understand, took the reins of Ned's horse and said, "My Lord of Winterfell, the king awaits you in the old throne room." The one from the conquest, my lord. The hand said you would know what he meant. I know what he meant. The old throne room was a cavern of black stone in the lower levels of the keep, not used these 3 centuries except as a storeroom. When Aegon the Conqueror had first landed, his lords had held court there on folding camp stools while workmen finished the upper floors. Somebody had swept it, very recently. A single brazier burned in the center of the floor. Robert Baratheon sat on a low oak chair against the wall with a cup in his hand. Jon Arryn stood at his right shoulder. Stannis Baratheon stood at the far wall with his arms crossed and his face like a knife laid sideways. There was no throne. There were, Ned noted, no guards. "Shut the door behind you," Robert said. Ned shut the door. For a time the two men did not speak. Robert was looking at the sling across Ned's chest. Ned was looking at Robert. Robert had put on 2 stones in a year. There was gray in his beard that had not been there at Storm's End. His eyes were very red. "Let me see him," Robert said. Ned hesitated. "On my mother's name," Robert said. "I will not touch the boy. Let me see him." Ned lifted the linen sling aside. Jon was asleep with his hand near his mouth. He had that crease between his eyes that meant he did not approve of the world. His hair, what there was of it, was the brown-black of every Stark. His eyes were closed. Robert stared. "He has her chin," he said at last. "Yes, he has her," Robert swallowed. "He has her ears. Did you ever?" "Yes. She used to push her hair back when she was thinking, and you could see her ears stick out." "Yes, Ned, Robert. Ned." "Yes, Robert, I wanted her," Robert said. "Gods, I wanted her. I would have, I know," Ned said. "I was going to build her a tower. I told her that, at the tourney. I told her I would build her a tower on Shipbreaker Bay with windows that opened to the north so she could smell the snow. She would have liked that, Robert." "No, she wouldn't," Robert said and laughed thickly. "No, she wouldn't have. She'd have hated it. She'd have laughed at me." "Gods, Ned." Jon Arryn did not move. Stannis did not move. The brazier cracked once. "Show me the letter," Robert said. Ned took the letter out of its oilcloth and unfolded it on the stones at Robert's feet. Robert read it. He was not a scholar, but he could read. He read slowly, moving his finger under the lines. Ned saw his lips form the name Lyanna twice. At the bottom Robert stopped. "Septon Maynard." "Yes, Maynard of Old Town. I know that name, didn't he?" "He was Aerys's confessor at the end," Jon Arryn said softly. "Was he a trustworthy man?" "He was a careful man," Jon Arryn said. "He is also, conveniently, dead. He died of a flux in a hedge sept on the Honeywine the year after the war. Tywin Lannister has had men asking questions about his last journey for some months. The Citadel has, to their credit, refused to discuss his correspondence. Convenient. Yes, convenient." Robert stared at the letter a while longer. "She signed it." "Yes. She signed her full name, Lyanna of House Stark. She didn't—" "It is her hand, Robert, I know it. She used to sign her letters to me as Lya, because she said Lyanna was a queen's name and she wasn't one, but she knew how to write it. She wrote it when she had to." "And she had to," Robert said. "Yes." There was a very long silence. Then Robert Baratheon, who had killed a crown prince with a hammer on a muddy riverbank, who had drunk Dornish red at his coronation until he had vomited on the Iron Throne, who had 17 bastards across the 7 kingdoms that he had not bothered to count, did a thing that no man expected. He stood, he walked to Ned. He looked down into the sling at the sleeping child. He did not touch the child. His hand hovered and clenched and fell back. "I will not kill him," he said. Ned let out a breath he had not known he was holding. "I will not." Robert said again, as though he needed to hear himself say it. "But by all the gods, Ned, do not bring him to me. Do not bring him to my court. Do not bring him south. Do you understand me?" "I understand. You will raise him at Winterfell, as your own. In the eyes of the realm he will be, my bastard Robert." Robert flinched. Ned saw it. Ned was almost glad to see it. "That cannot be, Robert," Ned said very quietly. "I swore to her. He will not be put into a lie. The realm will know what he is. If you will not say the name, I will not ask you to say it. He will bear the name Stark at Winterfell. He will be my son in all the ways a man can be a son. But the letter will exist, and men will know the letter exists. I will not have him disappear." "And who," Robert grated, "keeps your letter from crying for his inheritance?" "I do," Ned said. "While you live, on my honor." "Your honor." "On my honor, Robert. He will not ride against you. He will not sit a dais. He will not bear Targaryen colors. He will take no part in the house of Targaryen while you live." This I will swear before the seven and before the old gods. And when I die, then he is his own man, and your son is your son, and the laws of the realm will be as the laws of the realm are." Robert stared at him. "Why is it," Robert said, almost gently, "that every time I speak to you I feel I am being robbed by a man who insists on leaving coin on the table?" "Because you are my friend, Robert." Robert's eyes went bright. He did not look away. "Stannis," he said without turning, "Your Grace, you will draft a proclamation. Your Grace, you will write it in these words and no others. Write them down as I say them. Ye Harrys of House Targaryen, the natural and true son of the late Prince Rhaegar and Lady Lyanna of Winterfell, is this day placed under the wardship of Lord Eddard of House Stark, to be raised by him in the north as a ward of that house and in that name, by our royal grace and without diminishment of his blood. The said ye Harrys, hereafter known in the court of his ward as John, shall not leave the borders of the north without the written leave of the Iron Throne until his 16th name-day. He shall bear no arms in any host not commanded by his lord father, Lord Stark, nor shall he take ship for any port without our leave. His claim, if claim he has, to any seat or title beyond the wardship of House Stark is suspended by royal writ for the term of our life. Have you got it?" "I have it, Your Grace." Add at the bottom, "This decree is made in love and in memory of the Lady Lyanna, whom we will not dishonor even in our grief." Stannis's quill hesitated. Then it moved. "Sign it under my seal," Robert said. "And send a copy to Sunspear by the first bird, and a copy to Oldtown by the second, and a copy to Winterfell by the third. The rest of the realm can wait a month. Your Grace." Robert turned back to Ned. "Go home, Ned. Robert, go home. Take the boy, take him home. I don't want to see him." "Do not think I've forgiven anything. I have not forgiven anything. I have only—" He stopped. He closed his eyes. "I have only remembered what she would have wanted me to do. I will do it once, not twice." "Thank you, Robert. Don't thank me. Go." Ned went. He was 3 streets from the Red Keep when a small man in a gray robe fell in beside him in the press of the morning crowd, as though they were old friends crossing a market. The small man had no beard. He had hands soft as a boy's. "My Lord Stark," the small man said, "may I congratulate you?" "I do not know you, my lord." "Varys, my lord, the king's master of whisperers. You have heard the name, I hope. I have admired you from a distance for some years. I admire you more now." "Why?" "Because you did not lie," Varys said. "Do you understand how rare that is, Lord Stark? In the Red Keep, a man could go his whole life in that building and not hear a true word twice. He smiled. "I was in the gallery above the old throne room. The king did not know. The Hand knew. The king's brother knew. I wished to hear what you would say. You did not lie to him. Even when a lie would have been kinder. Even when a lie would have saved the child." "A lie," Ned said quietly, "could still kill the child, my lord." "Oh, a lie could," Varys said. "Which is why I admire you the more. You have chosen the harder road. You have chosen to be visible. Let me give you a small gift, Lord Stark. A gift from a man whose loyalty is to the realm." He smiled. "Do you know what the first thing a child of royal blood must learn is in the Red Keep? No, to eat nothing that has not been tasted by someone who loves him." "I will remember." "I thought you might. Good morning, Lord Stark. I wish you a pleasant ride north. Oh, and this, it is nothing, a small trifle." He pressed into Ned's hand a small object wrapped in gray silk. "Do not open it here. Open it at Winterfell. There is a letter inside. The letter bears my seal. It does not bear my name. It is not for you. It is for the boy, when he is old enough to read a letter without telling his mother about it. Good morning." The man was gone into the crowd. Ned did not open the silk. He rode out of the city that afternoon. He read the letter 9 years later, once, and then burned it, and never spoke of it to anyone, though he kept the seal in a wooden box under a board in his study, because he was a man who did not destroy evidence he did not fully understand. That is a later tale. At Casterly Rock the same afternoon, Tywin Lannister was reading a ledger when his daughter came into his study without knocking. Cersei was 11. She had gotten into the habit of not knocking that summer on the grounds that her father had, she believed, no secrets from her. She was going to have to be corrected of that belief in a few years. Tywin had not yet decided on the manner of the correction. Father, Cersei, the king has acknowledged the dragon's brat. Tywin turned a page of the ledger. He did not look up. The king has acknowledged the child's parentage. The king has not made the child an heir. There is a distinction, daughter. Learn it. The realm will whisper. The realm, said Tywin Lannister, always whispers. The skill of lordship is to know which whispers to listen to. This one is not yet worth listening to. When will it be? Tywin looked up then. He had pale green eyes flecked with gold. He considered his daughter a moment with the long, even consideration he gave to new siege engines and to promising horses. When he is old enough to sit a council, he said finally. Not a day sooner. At that age men with ambitions make choices. Before that age they make noise. Remember the difference. Yes, father, go and send Jaime to me. Yes, father. When Jaime Lannister came into his father's study, he was wearing a white cloak and a face that he had been wearing, off and on, for a year and a half, and that Tywin Lannister had come to detest. It was the face of a man who had sworn an oath he was tired of keeping. You were in the throne room that morning, were you not? Yes, father, on duty. Yes, father, you will have overheard things. I was young, father, I did not always listen. Do not lie to me, Jaime. The White Knight said nothing. Did the prince speak of a second marriage in your hearing? At any time, I want the truth, boy. We will not speak of it again after today, but I want it. Jaime Lannister, who had killed the king he had been sworn to, and who still dreamed about it in the hour before dawn, looked at his father a long moment. Yes, he said finally. I heard him speak of it. To Sir Arthur. In the corridor outside the small hall, about a moon before he rode for the Trident. He was arguing, father. He was arguing that they should tell the court. Sir Arthur said it would be a war. The prince said it would be a war worth fighting. Sir Arthur said, not while your father lives. The prince said, I remember the words exactly. Then I will ride south and end the war before it starts. And I will come back and take Aaliyah to Starfall and Lyanna to Dragonstone, and the realm can decide then. Sir Arthur said something about prophecy. I walked on. I was not ordered to listen. Why did you not tell me this before? You did not ask, father, and I was a king's guard. I do not speak of a dead king's words without cause. There is cause now. Is there, father? Tywin Lannister looked at his son a long time, then he said, Go. Jaime went. At the door he hesitated. Father. What? The boy is not Rhaegar, father. He is a baby at Winterfell. He has not done us any harm. Yet, go, Jaime. When the door had closed, Tywin Lannister sat alone with his ledger for a while, and then he rang the small silver bell on his desk, and when the Maester came he dictated a letter to a banker in Bravos whose name he did not write down. The letter was short. It instructed the banker to purchase, quietly and through 3 separate agents, the debts owed by a certain Pentoshi merchant who was, in turn, known to be the patron of a certain exiled boy and girl across the sea. The letter did not name the boy or the girl. The Maester did not ask. Tywin had always preferred to have options on a table before he decided which one to play. Winterfell stood gray under a sky the color of wet slate when Ned Stark rode through the Hunter's Gate with a child in his arms and a letter in his saddlebag. Catelyn Stark was on the steps of the great keep with Robb in her arms. Robb was 9 months old and drooling. Catelyn had not seen her husband in 13 months. She had been told by messenger from Riverrun that he was bringing a child that was not hers. She did not move when Ned dismounted. She did not move when Ned crossed the yard. She did not move until Ned had stopped at the bottom of the steps and had looked up at her and had said her name. Then she came down the steps one step at a time without taking her eyes off him. "Cat, my lord. Cat, I need to speak to you alone." "I see that you do." Robb saw his father and laughed, which wounded Ned more than any word Catelyn might have spoken. In the solar, with the door shut and the bar drawn across it, Ned told his wife the truth, all of it. He took the letter out of the oilcloth. He set it on the oak table. He did not flinch. He did not ask for her pity. Catelyn Stark read the letter twice. When she was done, she set it down. Her hands did not shake. Her lower lip did a little. She looked at her husband. "You will not," she said, "make me say that this is better." "No, Cat, I will not. It is not better. No. It is in some ways worse. It is a thing I will have to think about for years, Ned. It is a thing I will have to choose, over and over, how to think about. Yes. I thought I had married a man who had lain with another woman. And I had made my peace with that. Do you understand? I had made my peace with it. And now you tell me I have married a man who took his sister's son out of the arms of Kingsguard and carried him home. And who has sat a boy down in my nursery who is not yours and not mine and is a dragon." She stopped. She pressed her hand to her mouth. "Gods, Ned, gods, Cat, do not touch me yet, do not. I need a moment." He did not touch her. He waited. He counted the carvings on the beam above her head, which he had counted once before as a boy, when his father had been angry with him about the geese. There were 17 carvings. He knew by the 7th one that Catelyn was still his wife, and by the 11th one that she was going to make him live with this for the rest of his life, which was only fair, and by the 17th one that she was going to be, in the matter of the boy himself, kinder than he had any right to expect. "I will not love him," she said finally. "I want you to know that. I will not love him, Ned. I cannot. He is the blood of a man who killed my people's king and my father's king and who stole your sister and started a war. He has the blood of the Mad King. I cannot love him. I am not going to pretend to love him. Do not ask me to pretend. I will not ask you." "But," she said, and then she stopped and drew a breath and said again, "But Robb will love him, that I can see. I am not a fool, Ned. A boy that age needs a brother. And so when Robb comes to love him, as he will, I will not close a door between them. I will not set Robb against him. I will not set any child of mine against him. Do you hear me? I hear you. And I will see that he is fed and clothed and taught as befits the ward of Winterfell. I will not stint him. I will not make his servants stint him. I will see that he has warm boots in winter. I will see that he has lessons. When strangers come to the gates, he will not be pointed at. He will be one of the household. He will be the son of Lyanna Stark, who was my husband's sister, whom I did not know but whom I would wish, had I known her, to have loved. Cat, I am not finished." He waited. "And you will never," she said, "ask of me that I call him my son. Not once, Ned, not in the hall, not in the sept, not in private. If he comes to an age at which he is to be knighted or wed or sent south, you will not stand me in a ring of witnesses and require of me a word I cannot say. He will be my husband's ward and my son's brother and nothing else. Is that understood?" "That is understood, Cat." "Then bring him up." She turned her face to the fire. She did not look at the door when Ned opened it, or at the wet nurse who came in, or at the baby the wet nurse set in the cradle by the hearth. She looked at the fire. She looked at the fire for a long time. When the wet nurse had gone, Catelyn Stark rose and went to the cradle and looked down into it. The baby was awake. The baby had the gray eyes of her husband. The baby was smiling at the ceiling in the way a baby smiles when a beam of light plays across the whitewash. "John," Catelyn said, very softly, and she did not know and would not know that this was the first time his name was spoken at Winterfell. The baby turned his head toward the sound of her voice. Catelyn Stark did not smile. She did not weep. She stood there a long moment, and then she went to her own chamber, and she shut the door, and she did not come out for a night and a day. Winter came, and spring, and winter, and spring. Jon grew, Robb grew. When Jon was 7 and Robb was 7, and there was mud in the kennels, and the first lamb of the spring had been born with a hindquarter the wolfhounds could not resist, Catelyn Stark found them both with their arms red to the elbow, lifting a frightened ewe out of a pen, while Sir Roderick Castle stood over them with the half-smile of a master-at-arms, watching two boys discover that strength could be kind. Catelyn watched them a while without speaking. Robb was directing the ewe with words. Jon was bracing her with his body. Neither of them boasted. When the ewe was settled again and the kennel master had come running with apologies, Jon turned and saw Catelyn watching, and his face closed up, the way it always closed up when he saw her, and he bowed very correctly and walked across the yard with his arms still red. "Stop," Catelyn said. Before she knew she was going to say it, he stopped. "Wash those in the kitchen, not in the well." She could not make her voice warm. She had been trying for 7 years. "The well water is for drinking." "Yes, my lady, and do not," she stopped. "Do not bow so deeply to me in my own yard, Jon. It draws attention. The servants talk." "Yes, my lady. You may call me aunt in the yard if you wish." He looked at her. He was 7. He had his uncle's eyes. He did not answer for a moment. Then he said very politely, "I do not wish to give my lady pain." Catelyn Stark, in that instant, hated him less than she had ever hated him, and perhaps, afterward, less than she ever would hate him again, though she did not quite love him then or ever, and he knew it and did not blame her for it. And she knew that he knew it, and hated herself for that. She nodded once. "Go wash." "Yes, my lady." That night she prayed in the sept for a long time. She did not remember afterward what she had prayed for. In the 2nd year Sansa was born, in the 3rd Arya, in the 4th Bran. In the 6th year Howland Reed rode up from Greywater Watch with a 12-year-old boy named Alaric Dane at his stirrup, and a letter of introduction from Sir Arthur Dane at Starfall, and a thin, black-bladed dagger for Jon. For when the boy is grown enough to know, it should not be worn at feasts. In the 8th year Doran Martell sent a tutor, a tall, grave Dornish septa named Meliara, who had been tutor to Arion Martell, and was, according to the raven that arrived 6 days before she did, a woman who will not teach your wolf to be a snake, but will teach him, at least, that there are snakes. Catelyn did not like her. Catelyn tolerated her. In the 9th year, a Dornish knight named Sir Demon Sand came up the Kingsroad in a plain grey surcoat and a plain grey horse, and presented himself at the gate of Winterfell with a letter from Prince Doran Martell and a short sparring sword across his saddle. He was 26. He had been a ward of Oberyn Martell and was, he said, sent as a gift, my Lord Stark, though it is the nature of gifts from my prince that they come with their own uses. Ned received him with more grace than Catelyn, who would not be moved on the matter of Dornish knights, and stared at Sir Demon across the dinner table with the quiet endurance she reserved for people she intended to outlast. Sir Demon did not mind. He slept in the guards' barracks and ate with the household, and in the yard each morning taught Jon to fight. "Your brother has the sword of the North in him," Sir Demon said to Jon after a bout, in the year the boy was 11. "He will be a straight blade, very strong, very honorable, easy to break if one is not careful." "And me," Jon said, because he was 11, and because he knew already that what he asked was a question about his blood. "You," said Sir Demon, wiping the sweat from his brow with his sleeve, "are a Dornish problem in a northern body, boy, and I mean that as a kindness. You will never fight straight. You will never want to. You will feint, and you will change lines mid-step, and you will strike twice when you promised to strike once. You will make your enemies angry. Your enemies will be angry already. It will not matter, you will still win. The question is how you will feel about winning. Your brother will not like himself if he fights that way. You will not like yourself if you do not." Jon looked at him a long moment. "Is that good?" he said. "That is neither good nor bad, boy. That is what you are. You will learn to use it or you will be used by it. Now pick up your wooden sword." Again. In the 10th year, over the sea at Pentos, a silver-haired girl of 9 became the ward of a fat magister who liked to eat sugared bat wings. In the 11th year, in a tower at Lies, a boy with the face of a Targaryen stepped off a pleasure barge and began a journey that his handlers had already planned to the last bribe. In the 12th year, in a dusty chamber in the citadel, an archmeister named Marwyn pushed a stack of papers across a desk to a pale young acolyte and said, "Now, tell me why, if the prince married the Stark girl in a sept, the realm still thinks he stole her. Consider the spider. Consider the spider's master. Begin." In the 14th year, a raven came up the Kingsroad in the night with black wings and black news. The hand of the king, Jon Arryn, had died in his bed at the Red Keep of a brief and violent illness, and King Robert Baratheon was riding north. In a yard at Winterfell, a tall, dark-haired boy with gray eyes and a sword in his hand stopped fencing with his brother and turned his head toward the Raven Tower, as if he had heard the news before any man in the yard had heard it. He did not speak of it. He did not set his sword down. He simply finished the bout with Robb and bowed to the master-at-arms and went up to his father's solar. "Uncle," he said in the door, for he called Ned uncle now, in the ways that mattered, though he called him father in the ways that mattered more. "Jon Arryn is dead." "Yes, ye Harrys," Ned said, who had the black raven still in his hand. He called the boy by his true name only here in this room with the door shut. "He is." The boy came in and shut the door behind him. He was 14. He was as tall as his uncle. He had the long, still face his mother had had, and the dark hair his father had had, and the gray eyes that marked him to the world as Lyanna's. "The king is coming," he said. "Yes. He has not seen me since I was an infant, no." The boy was silent a long moment. "Uncle," he said, "I would like to know what the king remembers of my mother." Ned set the raven down on the desk. He looked at the boy. The pendant, the enamel rose on the silver chain, was in the box on his desk, where it had been for 14 years. He had given it to the boy on his 13th name day, and the boy had wept quietly and returned it for safekeeping. The rose was there now. The boy's eyes did not go to it. The boy's eyes went to his uncle. "He remembers," Ned said slowly, "that she was fast on a horse, and that she laughed when she won, and that she was kind to stable boys. He remembers that she had a crooked tooth, and that it showed when she smiled. He remembers that she smelled of winter roses. He remembers very little else. He remembers her the way a man remembers a song he loved when he was young. Do you understand? Yes, he has, ye Harrys, not forgiven her, I know. He has not forgiven me, I know that too. He will not forgive you either, boy, not for a long time." The boy did not flinch. "Then," he said, "we must give him a reason to want to." Ned looked at him. "You are 14 years old," he said. "Yes, uncle. You have decided, I see, a great many things already." "I have thought about the king, uncle," the boy said, "for a long time, since I was 6, perhaps. I do not know how not to think about him. He is the shape the sky takes when I look north out of my window and see the road. I cannot pretend he does not exist. I have not been allowed the luxury of pretending." "No, you have not." "Then I am not surprised that he is coming." "I have been a little surprised that it took him 13 years. Ned did not smile quite, but his mouth went softer. "Go," he said. "Tell your mother." The boy did not flinch at that either, though in private the word always cost him a little. Catelyn Stark was his mother in the ways Catelyn had allowed, which were fewer than she now wished she had allowed, and more than she had promised, and that, for now, was the shape of their peace. "Yes, father," Jon said, and turned and went. In the solar Ned Stark stood a long time by the window with the Black Raven's letter in his hand, and watched the evening light fall on the walls of the castle where his sister's son was growing to be a man. In the east, past the wall that he had not seen in 20 years, lightning flickered on a cloud, and in that flicker Ned thought, though the thought was foolish and he did not speak it, that he saw the shadow of something winged. It was only lightning. He told himself. It was only lightning. Chapter 3. The Winter Prince. The first snow of the late summer came on the morning of Arya Stark's 10th name day, which meant that Jon, who had promised his sister a ride out past the Hunter's Gate, and had imagined that ride for 3 days, and had made his plans down to the choice of horse, woke to the sound of Arya banging on his chamber door and shouting that they were going anyway. "It's a finger of snow, Jon. A finger. Get up, Arya. Don't Arya me. Get up. Sansa says I can't ride in it, and I said I could, and I want to prove her wrong. You promised." "I did promise, so get up." He got up. His chamber in the old tower was small, but it was his, which was more than could be said of a bastard's chamber in any other castle in the realm. And the reason it was more was the letter in the box on Ned Stark's desk, which Jon tried not to think about when he was picking out his boots. He pulled on the deerskin Sir Demon had given him for his last name day, a gift from Dorne so strange in shape, and so clearly intended to keep him warm in hostile climates that Catelyn had, upon seeing them, nearly laughed, which was the closest thing to a kindness she had offered him in a season. He took his short sword off its hook and did not take his proper blade, because Arya would want to practice at the hunter's stand and would wheedle him into lending her his, and she was still a little too small to swing Jon's longsword without hurting herself. He met her in the yard. She had on the boy's riding leathers she was not supposed to wear, and the boots she was not supposed to have, and the hair ribbon Septa Mordain insisted on. Arya wore the ribbon like a small personal insult to the Septa's memory, because Arya had decided at the age of 9 that the correct response to a rule was to obey its letter and violate its spirit at every possible opportunity. "Come on," she said, "before Robb decides he needs to come and be responsible. Robb is hunting at Long Lake." "Exactly. Come on." They took 2 garrons because the proper mounts would have slipped in the snow, and because Jon had learned, at about the age of 11, that riding a fine horse in the north when you did not need to was a way of telling the north that you were better than it, which was not a thing Jon ever wished to tell anyone, especially not the north. They went out past the walls and along the King's Road a short way, and then off the road into the edge of the Wolf's Wood, where a frozen stream bent around a stand of pines. It was there, in a drift of new snow against an old fallen oak, that Arya found the direwolf bitch, dead. She was as big as a garron. The antler of a stag was buried in her throat. She had died recently enough that the snow had not yet covered her fully. Under her belly, nosing in the blood-warm hollow of her fur, were pups. They counted 6, 5 gray and 1 white. "Jon," Arya said in a voice she did not often use. "Jon, Jon, I see them. Jon, we can't leave them here. We can't take 6 wolves back to Winterfell, Arya." "Yes, we can. I'm getting Mother to let us. Watch me." He smiled before he thought about smiling. She was a small, fierce thing, his sister. The word sister still felt, sometimes, like a word he was holding gently so as not to drop it. They loaded the pups into Arya's saddle sack and Jon's cloak, and they rode home slowly so as not to jostle them. And when they came into the yard, Robb was back already, because Robb's hunt had gone badly, and Ned was in the yard too, talking to the master-at-arms about horses for the royal progress. Ned saw the pups first. He counted them. His face, which had been in the middle of saying something ordinary about oats, did a thing it did not often do. It went very still. 5 and 1, Ned said. 5 and 1. Said Jon, who understood. "Father," Robb said, "are they direwolves?" "Yes, you know they are, Robb. Look at the size of the feet." Arya lifted the smallest of the 5 gray pups, a female with a light streak along her muzzle. "This one is mine. Arya, mine, father. Don't say no before you say yes." "I said nothing at all. Jon, pick yours." Jon did not pick. He looked at the pups in the sack and in the cloak, and he looked at his brother and his sister. He did not want to be first. He did not, after 14 years of care, want to reach his hand into a basket before Robb reached his. He waited for Robb. Robb chose a gray male with yellow eyes. "Gray Wind," Robb said. "I thought of it coming home." Sansa, who had come out at the noise, chose a small, pale bitch because... Sansa said, "She looks well-mannered." "Mannered," Arya said. "She's a wolf. She can be both." Bran, who was 7, chose a fat, dark male, who has the look of a horse about him, I think, Bran said, which nobody understood but which everyone accepted. Rickon reached for the last of the gray. Catelyn, who had come down the steps behind Sansa, and who had by now realized that her husband was not going to order the pups drowned, set her jaw and did not say anything, and merely gathered Rickon up in her arms with a pup tucked against her shoulder and said, "Shaggy. He's Shaggy. I shall call him Shaggy." "Dog," Rickon said, happy. "That is excellent, Rickon. You go on calling him whatever you like." Jon lifted out the last pup, the white one. He had been at the bottom of the sack all the while and had not cried once, because he had not had to, because he had been assuming all along that someone competent would reach for him in due course. The white pup opened his eyes. They were red. "Is he blind?" Arya said. "No," Jon said. "No. He sees." "Jon, his name is Ghost," Jon said. "I have been going to name something Ghost for a long time. I did not know it was going to be a wolf." "Why Ghost?" "Because he is silent." Arya accepted that. Ned, watching, did not say what he was thinking. Ned was thinking that 5 wolves and 1, the 4 true Stark children, the boy he had raised as Ned's own, and 1, and the white one had come apart from the rest, and had found Jon, and the symbol of it was so clean and so vast that Ned's breath caught for a moment. In the yard of his own castle, and he did not speak of it, not even to Catelyn then or later, because he had long since learned that the more a man spoke of a sign, the less a sign was worth. He put his hand on Jon's shoulder. "Come to my solar after supper," Ned said. "Father." "After supper, ye Harrys," Ned said, using the boy's true name for the first time in the open in 2 years. He did not lower his voice. He was tired, Ned, of lowering his voice. Catelyn heard. Robb heard. Arya heard. Sir Roderick heard. The stable boy heard. Jon saw in his father's face a thing that had been there a while and had not before had a name. It was something like the look of a man who has decided, finally, to let a secret walk out of a door. "Yes, father," Jon said. The solar was warm with the long fire of Winterfell burning in the grate, and the raven of the hand's death was no longer on the desk, because Ned had, some weeks ago, burned it. In its place was a new raven, a crisper, more recent thing, with a red seal, the 3-headed dragon of House Targaryen pressed into wax by a ring that Doran Martell had been holding in a drawer in Sunspear for 15 years and had now chosen to use. Jon came in and shut the door. "Sit, ye Harrys." He sat. Ned looked at him across the desk for a long moment. Then he pushed the letter toward him. "My uncle Doran has written to me. He has written to you. The letter came this afternoon." "Read it." "Jon, read." When he was finished, he set the letter down and put his hands flat on the desk. "He wants me to come south," he said. "In 2 years. To the Water Gardens, not as a hostage, as a..." Jon's face did something tight, "as a student. He says he has news from Essos he does not wish to send by Raven. He says my sister has hatched dragons. He says there are rumors." Ned corrected, very gently. "He does not say he believes them. He says he wishes me to come to King's Landing with you this summer, so that we may speak of it with Lord Arryn's successor, and with Prince Doran's envoy, and with, if possible, the king. The king is coming here first. He is." We will meet him. We will go south with him. Doran wishes to be in King's Landing when you arrive. You mean to go, then? I must go. Robert will ask me to be his hand. Jon sat very still. And you will say yes. I will say yes, ye Harrys. Because I have owed him an answer to a question for 14 years, and I cannot answer it by Raven, and because if I do not go he will appoint Tywin Lannister, and the realm cannot survive a year of Tywin Lannister in the Tower of the Hand, and because— Ned paused. His face was tired. Because Jon Arryn did not die of a sickness. I know this without proof. I will not find the proof by staying here. I must go south. Then I go with you. No, father. No, ye Harrys. Not yet, not on the road. You will stay here with Robb and your mother. When I have taken the measure of the court, when I have found out who killed Jon Arryn, when I have spoken to Doran's envoy face to face, I will send for you. Then you will come down as a guest of the Iron Throne, not as a boy in his father's train. You will come as yourself. As myself. As ye Harrys, yes. The realm has been told that I cannot leave the north before I am 16. The king's own writ. The king, Ned said, can rewrite what the king has written. He will, when I ask him. Jon looked at his uncle a long time. You will have a sword at your back the whole way south. He said, I will have men. You will have the wrong men, or men who can be bought, or men who are already bought. Jon, father, you are riding down to a city where somebody poisoned Jon Arryn who had more friends than you. You know this. Do not ride with a stranger's smile. Take Howland. Howland will not leave the neck. Then take Sir Daemon. Sir Daemon belongs to Dorne. He belongs to Prince Doran, and Prince Doran belongs this year to me. Take him. Ned almost smiled. He did not smile, he nodded. I will write to Doran tonight, he said. We will see. And I will ride to the Wolfswood tomorrow, Jon said. Why? Because the direwolves came from there, and I wish to see where their mother fell, and because I wish to speak to the Lord of Bear Island on her trip home from Deepwood Motte. Midge Mormont is at Winterfell tomorrow. I know. That is why tomorrow. I wish to ride with her part of the way north and speak with her, and speak with her daughters. For what reason? Because, father, if there are hands in the dark that wish me dead when you are not at Winterfell, I would prefer to know which bears I can put at my back. Ned Stark looked at his son because he had long since given up pretending in this room that the word ward meant anything except son, and he did not speak. You are 14, he said finally. Yes, father. A boy of 14 should not have to think in these terms. No, father. And yet. Ned rubbed his hand across his face. Go, ride with Midge, ask what you must, but ye Harrys. Yes. Not the sword, not with her. Do not draw a blade at that table. She will bristle. She will send word home the wrong way. Let her think you are asking for scholars. Yes, father. And take your brother. Robb will wish to hunt. Take Robb, ye Harrys. You are not going alone into the Wolfswood while there are men come down out of the north that none of us have names for yet. I have had 3 reports from last hearth of strangers on the Kingsroad in a month. Your brother rides with you, or you ride with me, or you do not ride at all. Yes, father, go. They rode out at first light. Midge Mormont and her daughter Daisy rode with them a league past the gates, and Midge was a broad gray woman with a mace at her belt and an unhurried way of speaking, and Daisy was 30 and bored and sharp, and had inherited from her mother the particular gift of looking at a young man, and within 2 breaths, deciding how he would die in a brawl and whether it would be worth her trouble to prevent it. She looked at Jon a good while. Ned's boy, she said finally. Yes, lady, the Dornish-taught boy. Yes, lady. I have heard of a knight named Sir Daemon Sand. Is he as good as they say? Better, lady. I do not like Dornish, Daisy said. I do not like their wine, and I do not like their climate, and I do not like their women. But I approve of a knight who is worth his hire. H.M. If we are at war this winter, which we may be, come to me at Bear Island. You and your brother. Bring your wolves. I will have a boat at Deepwood Mott 2 days in any moon. That is a very generous offer, lady. I am not being generous, boy. I am making a calculation. I have 14 knights. Your uncle, your father, has 10,000 spears. I would rather spend my 14 on a boy who knows my name. Do you understand? I understand, Lady Mormont. Good. Teach your wolf manners. Ride safe. She rode off with her daughter. They were fine riders. They did not look back. Robb sat a moment on his garron and looked after them. Gods. Robb said, I like her. Father said not to draw the sword. I did not draw a sword, John. You did not. You only looked about twice. She was making offers. She was making offers to me. Yes, Robb said after a moment. She was, wasn't she? They rode home. The day was cold and bright and cloudless. The wolves ran beside them, 3 gray shadows and 1 white. Ghost did not bark. Ghost never barked. He ran silent as a rumor, always a half-step behind Jon's garron, and once or twice Jon looked down and did not see him and then felt him, and that was enough. They were half a league from the hunter's gate when Ghost stopped. He did not growl. He did not bristle. He simply stopped and looked east into the thickening pines and did not move. Robb, I see him. There is someone in those trees. I see where there would be someone, yes. Jon dismounted. He handed his reins to Robb. He drew his sword. He did not draw it fast. He drew it as a man draws a sword when he has been taught by a Knight of Dorne to draw a sword, which is to say slowly, in a long, single motion, so that the blade does not flash and does not catch the eye and does not break a truce that has not yet been called. Robb drew his as well, and the motion of Robb's draw was a Northman's draw, and the motion of Jon's was not, and if anyone had been close enough to see the two of them, that would have told half the story. A man stepped out of the pines. He was not tall. He was not broad. He wore a brown traveler's cloak that no man at Winterfell owned, and brown boots with a worn-through heel on the left, and his face was utterly unmemorable. So very unmemorable that Jon found, in the instant of looking at him, that he had to work to keep the face in his mind. The way one might work to keep a word on the tongue that wished to slide off. The man's eyes were the ordinary brown of the Riverlands. Young Lord Stark, the man said. His voice was kind. I was hoping to meet you on the road. Which young Lord Stark, sir? Either perhaps, both perhaps. My business is with the one who has a white wolf and who bears another name when he is in certain rooms. I assume from the wolf that I have found him. Ghost did not growl. Robb said very quietly, Jon. I hear you, brother. Sir, Jon said aloud to the man. I do not know you. No one does, my lord. That is the nature of my name or the absence of it. I bring you a message from a man who wished you well once. He asked me to give it to you in person for reasons of delicacy. And the message is a gift. The man held out his hand. There was nothing in it yet, because he had not opened his palm. Jon took a step back without moving his feet. He was not sure how he did it. It was a trick Sir Demon had spent the previous winter drilling into him, a trick of weight and of half a breath, and it was the first time the boy had used the trick outside the training yard. It gained him, perhaps, 4 inches. It was enough. The man's hand came open not in offering but in attack. A thin glass vial spun out of his palm, faster than a snake strikes, aimed at the hollow of Jon's throat where the cloak gaped. The vial caught the light. It was a pale, milky liquid. It struck where Jon's throat had been a moment earlier, empty air, and kept going and shattered on the trunk of a pine tree 3 strides behind him. The tree hissed. A long black line opened in the bark. Steam rose. Ah, said the man thoughtfully. He had not stopped smiling. That is very good, my lord. I was told you were well taught. I did not fully believe it. My congratulations. He stepped forward. Robb was already moving. Robb was a full body length ahead of where he had been. Robb was coming in with his sword up and his jaw set, and the slow thunder of a young lion who has just realized that something is trying to kill his brother. Robb would have been on the man in another half-second. The man saw this. The man did the kindly smiling thing one more time, and from under his sleeve came a second vial. Jon moved before Robb reached the man. He did not go for the man's body. He did not try to take the man in a grapple. He went for the wrist with the vial, at a low angle, the way Sir Demon had taught him to go for a hand that held a dagger at an Associ street corner, and he struck the inside of the wrist with the flat of his sword, not the edge. Because he wanted the vial turned and not the vial shattered near his face, and the vial turned and it fell straight down, and it broke on the man's own boot. Milky liquid ran over leather. The leather hissed. The man looked down at his foot with an expression of mild and faintly surprised disappointment, like a man who has discovered that his morning cake has a weevil in it. "Ah," he said again. He sat down in the snow. "That is a great inconvenience, my lords." Jon did not lower his sword. Robb did not lower his. Ghost, silent as a rumor, walked up to the man and stood at Jon's side. "I was a priest of the god of many faces," the man said in a conversational voice. "I do not fear death. It is, as you say, my vocation. I wish only to tell you before the poison takes what is left of me that you were good today, young Lord Stark. I do not mean merely that you were quick. Many boys are quick. I mean you were good. You saw the trick and the other trick both. I am 72 years old. I have not often been surprised. Please accept my apology." Jon did not answer. "The message I was sent to deliver, my lord, will be delivered anyway. Someone will try again. You have not much time. I would estimate 4 moons, perhaps less. My master is a patient man. My master is not, however, a cheap man, and the price of my failure will be high, and the next man he sends will be very good. I counsel you to be at Winterfell when that man arrives. Beware your walls are thick." "Who sent you?" Jon said. The man smiled. The smile was already beginning to stiffen around the mouth. "I am sorry, young lord, that I cannot say. It is a matter of guild law. If it is a consolation to you, it should not be, but I will offer it. The man who paid for this commission did not give his true name. Few men do. My guild took a token of him, not a name. A bronze disc on a silver chain, quite old, quite pretty. A 3-headed dragon upon it." Jon felt the ground move once and then it stopped. "A Targaryen token," Robb said. "A token," the man corrected almost kindly. "Anyone may own a token, but yes. Yes. A Targaryen token." He closed his eyes. He did not open them again. Jon stood a long time in the snow before he knelt by the body and went through the pockets. There was a single small leaf-shaped knife. There were 2 silver coins, 1 Bravosi and 1 Valentine. There was a scrap of parchment with a sketch of the gate of Winterfell on it, and 3 small dots, and a tiny careful marking at the place of the chamber that had been Jon's own. There was nothing else. No seal. No name. No token such as the one the man had described, professional to the last. "Robb had not moved, Jon," he said at last. "Yes, brother, a Targaryen, yes, your uncle across the sea. Yes, Robb, my uncle across the sea. He wants you dead. He wants," Jon said quietly, "the throne. I am in the way of the throne. He is a man who has been told his whole life that the throne is his. I'm not surprised. Jon, brother." "You had better be something," Robb said, "when we ride south. You had better be better than the men they send, or I will stop them for you. I will. I am telling you now." "You will not stop all of them, Robb." "I will stop some of them." "Yes, brother, I know. I am grateful." Robb looked at the body a long moment. "We should burn it," he said. "No, we should bring it home. Father should see it. The Maester should see it. It will tell us things." A dead, faceless man. "This one was careless," Jon said. "Faceless men are not careless. He told me 4 moons. He told me a Targaryen token. He told me he was 72 years old. Faceless men do not tell." Then, Then either he was lying to put us on the wrong trail, or he was not a faceless man at all. Or he was a faceless man who wished me, for reasons of his own, to live. I do not know which. We bring him home. Father will know. They put the body over John's garron and walked the horses back. The wolves walked beside them. It had begun, very gently, to snow again. At the gate, Ghost turned and looked back into the wolfswood one long time. Ned Stark did not sleep that night. He had the body laid in the outer room of the crypts, on a trestle of oak, under 2 torches. The Maester had looked the body over. The Master-at-Arms had looked at the boots, and at the small leaf-shaped knife, and had said bravos or lies, without being able to say which. Howland Reed, who had ridden up from Greywater Watch that very afternoon, which was the second reason Ned did not sleep, because Howland Reed had not been expected for a fortnight, bent over the face of the dead man with a bronze lens pressed to his eye and whistled. "What?" Ned said. "He shaved." Howland said, "Look here, under the jaw. He shaved very carefully where he meant to change his face. This is not a faceless man, my lord. No, not wholly. This is a man who was trained by them. This is a boy of some Bravo house in Bravos, bought early, sent to the house of Black and White for finishing, and then drawn back out by the family that sent him. He is not a servant of the many-faced god. He is a servant of a house with the patience to train one. Which house? That I do not know. There are 4 in Bravos who might have done it. 3 of them are pious, 1 is not. The one that is not is called the house of Antarion. They take commissions from the Sea Lord and from others more often of late. Howland. Yes, my lord. You came up from the Neck a fortnight early. Yes, my lord. Why? Because a raven from an old friend of mine in Lies came to my castle 5 days ago. It said a young man with a silver head and a great temper had ridden out of the city in a hurry the week before, with a purse in his hand and a hired blade at his saddle, bound for Pentos. The friend does not know for what purpose, but he knows the boy. The boy is Viserys of House Targaryen. And Pentos, my lord, is the city where this boy here, he gestured at the body on the trestle, bought his boots. Ned looked at the body. Then my son's uncle, he said very quietly, has opened his purse. Yes, my lord, I ride south in a fortnight. Yes, my lord, you do. Is it safe to send my son behind me? If you send him behind you, Howland said carefully. At a time the assassin does not know of, by a route the assassin does not know, with companions the assassin does not expect, yes. It is safer than leaving him here without you. It is safer, in fact, than almost any choice you have. He is 14. Yes, my lord, he is. And he killed a trained Bravosi killer in the snow today with his brother and a wolf to help him. He will kill another alone if he must. He would prefer not to, but he will. I have watched him grow, my lord. He has his mother's heart and his father's mind, and of the 2 men I mean, only one was the Stark one, and I will not speak the other's name even here. He is ready. Ned closed his eyes a moment. Tell him to come to me in the solar, he said. I will speak to him. And send Sir Demon. I have a conversation to have with a Knight of Dorne about a road south. Yes, my lord, and Howland, my lord. Thank you. Howland Reed only nodded, as he had nodded on the stair at the Tower of Joy, as though confirming a thing he had already seen in a dream, and he went to fetch the boys. Sir Demon Sand came into the solar alone. He did not sit when Ned motioned him to sit. He stood with his hand on the hilt of his short sword and his legs a little apart, as was his habit in any room he had not yet walked the corners of, my lord. Sir, I have heard about the Wolf's Wood. Yes. I am sorry, my lord. I should have been with him. I was at the training yard. I was with the new squires, I thought. Sir Demon, I did not send you down out of Dorne to apologize to me. I sent for you because I am going south, and I wish to know, from your own mouth, how far you will go with my son when I send for him. The Dornish knight looked at Ned a long moment. As far as is needed, my lord. Your prince may ask you to come home one day. My prince has given me leave to speak as if I were a free man, my lord. I am not a free man. Neither is any man in my prince's service, and I would not wish it otherwise. But he has given me leave. And as a free man, my lord, I would go south with your son, whichever south he rode. I would go west, if he rode west. I would go to the wall, if he rode to the wall. I do not say this because I love him, my lord, though I do. I say it because I have trained him for 3 years, and I know what I have trained. It would be a shame on my house to let that boy be killed because I was not at his elbow when a bravo came out of a pine tree. That is a very long answer, sir. I am a Dornish knight, my lord. We have long answers. Ned almost smiled. Sit, Sir Demon. Sir Demon sat. The plan, Ned said. I will ride south with the royal progress. I will take Sansa and Arya. Catelyn will not permit otherwise in the case of Sansa. I can. He stopped. I can win that argument with Catelyn only on condition that I take Arya also. I will take a small household. I will not take Jon. Robb stays. Robb stays. He is Lord of Winterfell in my absence. He is 15. It is a year early. It cannot be helped. Robb is not a problem, my lord. No, Robb is not a problem. I am not worried about Robb. I am worried about a man who does not wear a face I know. Yes, my lord. I will write to Prince Doran tonight and ask him, as a brother, to take Jaehaerys to the Water Gardens for a summer. As a guest. Under the name the King's writ provides, Jon. I will ask the prince to send 3 ships to the Rills. I will send Jon with you and a small escort by sea when I send for him. He will not ride the Kingsroad. He will not be seen at Winterfell on the day he rides out. The servants will be told he is at Deepwood Motte on the Mormont's hospitality. By the time Viserys' next man reaches the neck, Jon will be stepping off a ship at Sunspear. Do you like that? I like most of it, my lord. Which part do you dislike? I dislike the 3 ships, my lord. The Rills have 3 ships a lord of Winterfell can call upon. Yes, my lord. And in lies, a boy with a purse in his hand has bought the good will of 6. By the time Jon's boat touches the Rills, 2 of your 3 Rills ships will have taken coin to look the other way for an afternoon, and I will have needed to replace them quietly. And I would prefer we do not have 3 ships but 7, of which 5 are Dornish and from Salt Shore, and which none of the bought captains know are coming. I do not like surprises, my lord, unless they are mine. Can you arrange 7, sir, if my prince consents, which he will? Good, arrange them. Yes, my lord. Sir Demon stood. At the door he paused. My lord, he said. May I ask a question? Yes. Is it your intention that Jaehaerys, when he comes south, come as the boy from the King's writ, Jon Stark, Ward of Winterfell, or come as himself? Ned Stark did not answer at once. The fire crackled. Outside, a raven called hoarse and dry on the air shaft of the tower. That, Ned said finally, is a question I have not decided. Yes, my lord. I have walked around it for 14 years. I have kept it in a box in my mind. I have not taken it out. It is heavy. Yes, my lord. When I ride south, sir, I do not know the answer, sir. I know only that I do not wish him taken from me, whatever name he rides under. Yes, my lord, thank you for the answer. That was not an answer, sir. It was, my lord. You did not know it was. He bowed and went out. Jon came in after. Ned was standing at the window. He did not turn. Father, Jaehaerys, Howland told me. Good. He thinks the man was not a true faceless man. Yes, he thinks my uncle paid for him. Yes, and the next man will not be careless. No, Jon stood in the middle of the solar. For a time he did not speak. Ned could hear, distantly, the ring of hammers in the armory. Mikken was working on the King's progress armor, on orders that had gone out a fortnight before. Jon had some weeks ago asked Mikken to forge him a fighting knife, a plain thing, a working blade, no silver on the hilt, short enough to sit under a cloak. Micken had grumbled and then agreed. The knife lay in a drawer in Jon's chamber now, oiled. Jon had not needed it that morning. He would perhaps need it soon. Father. Yes, son, if the next man is very good, he will be. Then I should not be here when he arrives. No, you have a plan. Sir Demon has a plan. It is a good plan. He will tell you tomorrow. I wish to say to you only what I cannot say in front of him. Jon waited. Ned turned from the window. He crossed to his son. He put his hands on Jon's shoulders. He was half an inch shorter than the boy now. He had become so in the winter just past. He had not yet quite accepted it. If something happens to me in the south, Ned said, and you are not yet grown, father. Listen, ye Harrys. If something happens to me in the south and you are not yet grown, you do not ride for the Red Keep. You do not ride for the throne. You do not try to rescue Sansa and Arya from a dungeon by the strength of your arm. You ride north with everyone who will come with you. You go to the Wall if you must. You go to Bear Island. You go to Skagos. You wait. Do you hear me? You wait. A boy of 14 on the Iron Throne is a boy dead on the Iron Throne. A man of 20 on the Iron Throne is a man. I will not have you climb those steps too soon. And my sisters. I will see to your sisters. If I cannot, Howland will. If Howland cannot, Doran will. That is why I am making a pact with Doran. That is the one thing I am asking of him in return for all of this. Your sisters first, always, even before you. You have asked him already. I wrote the letter this afternoon, without consulting me, ye Harrys. Yes, father, yes. Jon nodded once. He was not angry. He was, Ned could see, tired in the particular way a boy is tired when he has been trying not to be a child all day. Ned drew him in and held him a moment, briefly and not awkwardly, and then released him and stepped back. Go to bed, son. Yes, father. And ye Harrys. Yes, father. Tomorrow you will go to the Godswood before breakfast, and you will sit there a long while alone, and you will speak to your mother. Not aloud, quietly. The old gods will listen if you are quiet. Tell her what happened today. Tell her about the wolf. Tell her you are well. It will help you, son. It helped me when I was your age and worse had happened. Yes, father. Jon went out. Ned stood a long time alone in the solar after, with the torches low and the raven still calling on the air shaft. And he did not move until Catelyn came in without knocking and stood in the doorway and said, Ned. Only that. And Ned, who had not wept at the Tower of Joy and had not wept at Lyanna's grave and had not wept when Robert had stood and walked to him and not killed the child, crossed the room in 3 steps and put his face against his wife's shoulder and wept briefly. Because the day had been very long and the letter under his pillow was heavier than any armor he had ever worn, Catelyn held him. She did not speak. Outside in the yard, a white wolf turned a slow circle under the moon and lay down and looked north and did not sleep. Chapter 4. The wolf and the dragon, the royal progress, rode into Winterfell on a thin, bright morning in the 9th month of the summer. There were 700 of them in the main train, 3,000 counting outriders and wagonmen and the singers, and they had eaten Barrowton Bear and ridden the last 3 days on rations that had made the king less charming than he had begun. They came up the King's Road with the banners uncased, a stag and a lion quartered, and the lion gold on the crimson and the stag black on the gold, and above them all the crown banner of a running stag crowned. The horn sounded from the wall at the second bend. Jon, in the yard, was hooding the peregrine Arya had been allowed to hold for the welcome, and his hands were very still. Jon, Arya whispered. Jon, I hear them. I don't want to stand in a line. You will stand in a line, and you will look at the ground when the king's eye crosses yours, and you will say, my lord prince and my lady queen, as the septa taught you, and you will do it for an hour, Arya. 1 hour. For me. For you, Jon. For me. Will you owe me? I will owe you. Anything I want. Within reason. Anything, Jon. Within reason, Arya, she glared. She went to her place in the line anyway. Jon put the peregrine on his forearm and walked past Sansa, who was standing very straight beside Catelyn, and past Robb, who was standing very straight beside Ned, and took the place at the end of the line that had been assigned to him, not among the Stark children. Because in the formal ceremony he was a ward, not a son, but not in the household either, because he was too tall to be missed and too close to Ned by face to be denied. He stood alone at the end with Ghost on his right. Ghost did not move when the gates opened. The king came in first, on a tall black destrier that was too small for him. Robert Baratheon had been a great man once. He had been a great man in the way a wave is great, furious and strong and impossible to hold. That man was still inside the man who came through the gates of Winterfell, somewhere, buried. What came out onto the flagstones was a wide, ruined barrel of a king, beard streaked with gray, belly straining against a gold-buckled belt, eyes too red and too wet. He swung down off his horse with the grace of a man who had not forgotten the trick. He crossed the yard to Ned. He embraced Ned. He held Ned 2 heartbeats longer than a man is supposed to hold another man at a public welcome. 9 years, Robert said thickly. 8, Ned said. 9. You were in the south the year of the trouble with the Iron Islands. I was. 9 then. 9, your grace. Robert looked past Ned at the line of the Stark children. His eyes went to Robb first, who was the heir. Robert grunted. His eyes went to Sansa, who was very pretty and very well trained, and curtsied at the right moment. Robert's face softened. His eyes went to Arya, who did not curtsy quite right. Robert almost laughed. His eyes went to Bran, who had been told not to climb anything the king could see, and who was failing the test by shifting from foot to foot. Robert did not notice Bran. Robert's eyes had already moved. They had found Jon at the end of the line. The yard went very quiet. Robert stared at him a long moment. Jon did not meet the king's eyes. He did not look at the ground either. He kept his gaze at the space between the king's shoulder and the king's cheek, which Sir Daemon had taught him long ago was the neutral place. Not defiance, not servility, but a place a man's attention goes when he is willing to speak and willing not to. Gods, Robert said softly. Gods. Ned said nothing. Take me to your crypt, Ned, Robert said, before anything else. Take me to your sister, now, your grace. Now, damn you, before I do anything foolish, take me down. They went down. Catelyn, who had been warned by Ned that something of the sort might happen, began the business of seeing the queen and her household to their chambers with the absolute competence of a woman who had been preparing for this hour for half a year. And Cersei Lannister, who was furious at being led anywhere by a northern lady and whose horse had been skittish on the last mile, allowed herself, for the first time in Winterfell, to be managed. Jon did not go down with Ned and Robert. He went to the stables to settle the peregrine, because that was the small task he had been given, and because if he had stood in the yard any longer the king would have spoken to him in public, and Jon did not wish to give a first word to a king he did not yet know how to speak to. In the stables, Tyrion Lannister was sitting on a bale of straw waiting for him. Jon stopped. Ghost, who had followed Jon into the stables, lay down at Jon's heel without being told. My lord of Lannister. My lord of... Tyrion paused. My lord of Stark, I assume for today. I do apologize, young man. I wished to see you before my sister did, and before my nephew did, and before my father's ravens arrive with a polite note about how I am to ignore you. I believe I have about a quarter of an hour. May I be blunt, please? You have a Bravosi dead in your crypt. We have 2 dead in our crypts, Jon said carefully. One is my aunt. Tyrion smiled. It was a small, sharp smile. Very good, too, the Bravosi. We heard. You heard in Casterly Rock, I heard. My father heard earlier. I am not here on my father's business. I am here on my own. May I give you a gift? Yes. From the inside of his jerkin, Tyrion produced a small folded paper. This, he said, is the name of the Lycene banker through whose hands the coin passed to hire your assassin. I came by it honestly, by which I mean I bribed a clerk. The clerk will say nothing because the clerk is afraid of me more than he is afraid of the man who hired the assassin, and because I pay better. The paper is yours. Look at it later. Do not thank me. I require nothing from you. I am not making you a tool, young man. I am making you a friend. Friends are expensive in the capital. A Targaryen-blooded friend is priceless. Have it. Why? Jon said. Because my sister would kill you in a week if she could, and my nephew will try in 6 years, and my father is making contingent plans, and I do not wish to watch a good boy killed by my family. It is a poor family. I am tired of it. You are a Lannister. I am a Lannister, young man. I am also 24, I am also bored, and I am also, like your father, a reader. I have read the letter, the public letter. The king's writ of the year you were born. I read it in the rolls at King's Landing last summer. It is a fascinating document, a careful document. I wondered for a year afterward who wrote it in Robert's name, because Robert could not have written it himself, and Stannis could not have managed the closing. I have concluded it was Jon Arryn with Stannis's pen. Do you know who Jon Arryn was? The Hand. The man who raised your father. The man who raised the king. The man whose hand wrote your entire life when you were 6 weeks old, sitting in a stone cellar in the Red Keep on the king's knee. And now dead, quite suddenly. Does that not interest you? It interests me. Good, keep it interesting. Do not let anyone put you in a box with a silver lid, and take the paper. I have written my own name at the bottom, in case you wondered if this was a trap, which of course it is. All gifts are traps, young man, but you are old enough now to know which traps to step into voluntarily. Jon took the paper. Thank you, Lord Tyrion, imp. I do not mind, imp. My friends call me that. You may call me that if you like, Lord Tyrion, imp, Lord Tyrion. Tyrion smiled again. As you wish. Good morning, young lord. He slid off the bail. At the door of the stables he paused. One more thing. Yes, your brother Bran. Yes, he is going to climb a tower, I think, some tower. He is a climbing sort of boy. Somebody will have to fetch him down. Keep him down, young lord. My sister's companion is not a man whose solitudes bear intrusion well. Do you understand me? Jon looked at him. Yes, he said slowly. I understand. Good morning, said Tyrion Lannister and left. Down in the crypts, by the statue of Lyanna Stark, Robert Baratheon stood a long while without speaking. The crypts of Winterfell are a cold place in any season. In summer they are colder than the yard outside the kitchens, and the torches that Jory Castle had lit at every pillar hissed in the wet air. Ned stood a pace behind the king. He had laid a wreath of winter roses on the stone at the foot of the statue the evening before, which was a courtesy Catelyn had insisted on, and which Ned had not argued, because he knew Robert would come down here first, because Robert had told him he would by letter. Before leaving King's Landing, Robert stared at the face of the statue. She was not this quiet, he said. No, she was not. The mason got the mouth wrong. He did the best he could. She would not sit for him. He had to work from the memory of a girl he had seen once at a feast. Mouth wrong. Robert reached out a hand and stopped and did not touch the stone. Nose right, eyes right, mouth wrong. Who leaves the roses, Ned, my wife, your wife? Cat does not love your wife, Robert. She does not love mine either. But she loved my sister once by story, and she will not have her stone bare. Robert nodded slowly. I loved her, Ned. I know. Did she love me? Ned considered. He had imagined this moment many times down the years in the dark hour before dawn, when every man considers the questions he does not know how to answer. He had rehearsed the kindness. He did not give the kindness. No, Robert, he said. Robert closed his eyes. She loved the prince, Ned said. I do not say it to wound you. I say it because if I do not say it, you will one day ask the boy, and the boy does not know what he will say. I would rather you hear it from me in this place. Gods, Ned. Yes. Did he? He did not. He did not. She went to him. I have known this a long time, Robert. I have known it since I read the letter. I did not think she had run to him. I think she had been running toward him since Harrenhal. He wrote a careful letter. He wrote a careful oath. He took her to a sept on the Trident, which was not a kindness to you or to me, but was not a cruelty either. He was a better man than you have wished him to be. He was a worse man than she believed he was. They were both young. They were both fools. They were kind to each other, I believe, in the ways that young fools manage to be kind. It is a small thing, Robert, but it is the thing I can say. Robert Baratheon laughed once, a sound like a bark. Kind to each other, you say? Yes. Gods, Ned, you are still the worst liar in the 7 kingdoms. That, Ned said after a moment, is not a lie. They stood silent a long while. Then Robert wiped his eyes with the heel of his hand in the rough way he had, and Ned pretended not to see, and Robert said, "Take me up, Ned. I cannot do any more of her today. Tomorrow, perhaps. Today I have done enough." They went up. At the door of the crypts in the yard, Robert stopped. He did not look at Ned, the boy. Yes, he has her chin. I saw that in the yard, he has. And he has a wolf, he has. A white one. A white one. A stark wolf, then. Nada. Robert did not finish. A wolf, Robert. The mother was a dire wolf. The father is unknown. It makes no difference. He is a boy. He has a wolf. He loves his brother. He loves his sisters. He is a boy, Robert. You will not bring him into the hall tonight. I will not. I had not planned to. He will eat at the lower table with the household. Good. Your Grace. Don't, Ned. Your Grace. He has written a short letter. He wishes me to give it to you if you will have it. Not aloud. Not in the hall, alone, at your convenience. What does the letter say? I have not read it. I gave him leave to write it without showing it to me. Robert was quiet a long moment. Give it to me after supper, he said finally. In your solar I will read it alone. Yes, your Grace, and Ned. Yes. If it is a petition I will burn it. I have told him as much, your Grace. He knows. Then what does he wish to say? I do not know. I did not ask. Robert looked at him. Robert Baratheon's eyes were the flat, wet blue of a shallow sea, and the anger in them was as old as Ned's memory of him. You are a very honest man, Eddard Stark. I try to be, Robert. It is your most infuriating quality. I know, Robert. Robert turned and went up the yard toward the great hall and did not look back. Jon found his brother Bran that evening at the top of the broken tower. The broken tower had been struck by lightning the year Ned was born, or so the family story went. The upper floor had cracked and the roof had come off, and the rooms inside had been abandoned. And for 60 years, the tower had been the domain of squirrels and ravens and the kind of boy who liked to climb. Bran was not, strictly speaking, inside. He was 3 feet below the parapet on the south face, with his feet on a stone that did not, from a distance, look as if it could hold a feather, and his hands on a course of stones that had been set in the conquest and had been waiting since the conquest for a Stark boy to test them. Bran. Jon. Come down, in a moment. Now, Bran, Jon, I am practicing. I see that, I am getting better. I see that too, come down anyway. Bran looked across the yard toward the tower opposite, which was the first keep, and which had a shuttered window on its middle floor, and which was the window from which he had heard in passing from a scullion. A blonde lady of the Queen's household had been known to watch sunrises. Jon. Come down, Bran. I will tell you why in the yard, please. There was something in Jon's voice that reached Bran in a place that even his mother's voice often could not. Bran came down. He was very good at coming down when he wanted to be. The trouble was that he rarely wanted to be. At the foot of the tower, Jon took him by the shoulders. Bran, do not climb the broken tower again. Not this week, not this moon. Why? Because the king's household is here, and they do not like to be watched, and there are people in the household who will not hesitate to push a boy off a wall if the boy sees what they do not wish him to see. Do you understand me, John? Answer. I understand. I am not a child, John. You are a child, Bran, and I love that you are a child, and I want you to go on being a child a while longer. Do you hear me? I hear you. Swear. I swear. On what? On Summer, Bran said. Good. They walked back to the main keep together. Bran's wolf, which he had named Summer, and which was now nearly as big as Bran, trotted at his heel. Jon did not release Bran's shoulder until they were indoors. That night in the great hall, with the feast rolling and Robert already drunk and Arya having thrown a piece of lemon cake at Sansa's head, and the queen smiling a smile that was the nearest thing to an open knife she would allow herself in a great hall, Jon sat quietly at a lower table and watched. For the first minute of the feast and all the minutes after, the fair-haired knight who was Sir Jaime Lannister, who was leaning against a pillar at the wall and looking at no one and everyone, and who had the same tired expression that Jon had once, years before, seen on the face of Sir Arthur Dayne. Sir Jaime's eyes met Jon's once across the hall. Sir Jaime, to Jon's surprise, raised his cup in a small salute. Jon, to his own surprise, returned it. Later, in the corridor outside the great hall, when Jon was carrying a pitcher of water back to the kitchens, because a server had spilled and there was no one in the yard, Jon wished to bother for such a small thing. The white-cloaked knight stepped out of an arch and met him and did not draw. "My lord prince," Sir Jaime said very quietly so that only Jon could hear. Jon looked at him. He set the pitcher down on a ledge. "Sir Jaime, I have wanted to say this for 14 years. It seems silly now, but I have wanted to say it." "Yes, sir." "Your father argued with Sir Arthur the night before he rode for the Trident, in the corridor outside the small hall. I was on watch. I heard them. I heard him say a thing about prophecy that I did not understand. I heard Sir Arthur tell him to abdicate the plan. I heard Sir Arthur tell him he was a fool. I heard your father say," Sir Jaime paused. "I heard him say, if I fall at the Trident, see to the boy. His name will be a shield. Do not let him be a secret. I made a secret of him too long. Those were his words, or close enough. I have remembered them a great many times." Jon did not speak. "I failed a king that year," Sir Jaime said. "I failed a queen. I failed a great many people. I am not telling you this for your forgiveness, my lord prince. I am telling you because I am a Kingsguard, and a Kingsguard owes his prince the truth, and you are my prince, or you were, for an hour in a corridor 14 years ago, and I never got to say it. So, there, I have said it. Good evening, my lord prince." He stepped back. Jon picked up the pitcher. "Sir Jaime." "Yes, my lord." "Thank you." "Yes, my lord." "Would you," Jon stopped, "would you teach me someday the trick you used on the Smiling Knight? Sir Demon has spoken of it. He says he has never understood it." Sir Jaime smiled. The smile was a small, strange smile, not quite pleasant, not quite unpleasant. "Yes, my lord prince," he said. "One day, when there is a yard that is empty and an hour to spare, I would like that. Good evening, sir." "Good evening, my prince." Jon took the pitcher to the kitchens. On the way back through the corridor, he passed, without seeing, a small man with no beard who had been standing in a shadow the whole time, and who had heard every word, and who left the castle 3 days later in the kitchen wagon of a peddler, bound south with a letter in a hollowed-out candle that would reach Varys at the Red Keep in a fortnight, and would, for reasons Varys did not entirely understand even to himself, make the spider smile when he read it. After the feast, Ned brought Jon's letter to the Solar and left it on the table and closed the door behind him. Robert Baratheon sat in the Lord's chair by the fire with a cup of Arbor Gold in one hand and the folded paper in the other for some time before he opened it. He drank the cup. He did not call for a second. He unfolded the letter finally and read it slowly, moving his lips on the harder words. The letter was 1 page long in a careful hand. It said, "Your Grace, I am the boy you did not kill. My uncle has told me my whole life what you did in the cellar of the Red Keep, the morning he came down out of Dorne. He has told me you set aside your grief for an hour in the name of a girl you loved. I have been asked not to tell you that I am grateful. I will say it anyway. I am grateful, Your Grace. I have had a life in which to be grateful, and a family and a brother and sisters and a father. The debt is not one that may be paid. I will not try to pay it. I will try only not to embarrass it. I do not wish your throne, Your Grace. I have not wished it these 14 years. I do not expect you to believe me. I do not expect you to trust a son of the house that took her from you. I write only so that the words are somewhere written down, in my hand, in case a day should come when you wish to remember that the boy you did not kill did not, afterward, lie to you. My mother, my uncle has told me, used to push her hair back when she was thinking, and you could see her ears stick out. He did not tell me that part. I had to drag it out of him. He was annoyed. I am glad to know it. I will not come to your hall while you are here. You have not asked that I come. I will not force it. If, before you ride south, you should wish to see me in the yard or in the godswood, I will be in either place at any hour you name. If you do not so wish, I will not be offended. I understand. Your servant in Winterfell, John. Robert read it twice. The second time he came to the line about his mother pushing back her hair, he stopped. He folded the paper. He sat a long time with the paper between his hands, looking into the fire. He did not burn it. He rose eventually and put the letter in the inside pocket of his doublet against his chest, where he had once kept another letter a long time ago when he had been young. In the godswood, he said aloud to the empty room. Tomorrow, at first light, if he is there, I will be there. If he is not there, I will be there anyway. Gods, gods, gods. He went to bed drunker than he had intended. In the morning, in the godswood under the heart tree, a man and a boy met one another without witnesses for the space of perhaps a quarter of an hour. No one ever learned what was said between them. Ned did not ask. Catelyn did not ask. Sir Roderick, who had been told to stand at the edge of the wood and see that no one came in, did not ask either. John, when he came out, did not smile, but he did not look as he had looked when he went in. Robert, when he came out, had his hand on John's shoulder for the first 2 steps of his walk across the yard. He took his hand away when they reached the sundial. He did not speak to John again for the whole remainder of the royal progress. But 3 days after the progress had ridden south, a small rider caught up to the train at Moat Cailin with a sealed package from the king, addressed to the Lord of Winterfell. Inside the package was a warhammer, too small for a man and too large for a boy. It had a black oak haft. It had a steel head. On the head of the hammer, in the king's own hand, was scratched a single word, "For ye Harrys." Ned Stark read the inscription and looked at the hammer a long moment in the morning sun and said nothing at all. And he wrapped it in oilcloth and sent it north by the next raven's rider to be placed in the armory of Winterfell, against the day his son or nephew, as the case might be, was old enough and willing to pick it up. They did not try to kill John that first week. They tried to kill Bran instead. The attempt came on the 4th night after the progress arrived. Bran had taken a small fever, a mild thing. Maester Luwin had said 3 days of bed rest, and Bran had agreed loudly, because a bed rest by the fire with a pup on his chest was not a bad trade for a boy of 7. He was asleep with Summer asleep across his legs when the latch on his door lifted. Summer lifted his head. The man in the door had a thin face and a hooded cloak and a dagger in his hand. The dagger was Valyrian steel. The blade had a fishtail guard. John, who had been sleeping in a chair 3 doors down with Ghost across his feet, because John did not trust the weak, because Jon had not trusted the week since Tyrion Lannister's stable-yard visit, heard Summer growl. Jon was at the door of Bran's room in 2 breaths. The man turned. He was a quick man. He was a northern man from his build and his boots. He did not look afraid when he saw Jon. He looked annoyed, the way a journeyman craftsman looks at an apprentice who has walked in on him mid-cut. He changed the angle of the dagger and came at Jon. Jon had his Mikan knife in his hand. He had had it in his hand before he was fully awake. He had slept with his hand on it since the wolf's wood, which was a thing he had not told his father. The cat's paw was good. He was professional. He had been paid very well. He knew how to fight in a small space. He went low once at Jon's thigh, and when Jon turned the low cut he went high at the throat, and the high cut would have taken any boy of 14 who had not been trained by Sir Demon Sand. Jon had been. He slipped the high cut on the half-turn, and he struck the cat's paw's wrist with the pommel of his own knife, and the Valyrian blade hit the floor and slid. And then he put his knife through the cat's paw's lung and held the man against the wall until the man stopped struggling and slid down the stone. Summer was on the cat's paw's throat before the man fully hit the floor. Jon let the wolf. Bran woke up. Bran looked at the body on the floor of his bedchamber. Bran looked at his brother, Jon. Bran, did he? No, he did not touch you, Jon. It's all right, Bran. Jon, your hand. Jon looked down. There was a long, shallow cut along the back of his left hand that he had not felt. He pressed the wound against his thigh. It's not deep. I'll get Luwin. Jon. Bran, it's all right. Look at me. It's all right. Bran began to cry. Jon put the knife down and picked his brother up and held him, while Summer stood over the dead man and growled steadily at nothing. They found out the next morning, when Tyrion Lannister looked at the fishtail dagger in the solar with Ned and Catelyn, and Robb and Jon and Howland Reed and Sir Roderick Castle, that the blade was a Valyrian dagger of some age, of middle weight, that had belonged to him, Tyrion Lannister. Until the tourney at the name-day of Prince Joffrey 2 years ago, when he had wagered it on a tilt against Sir Jaime, and that he had lost the wager, and that his brother Jaime had given the dagger, in apparent goodwill, to Lord Petyr Baelish of Harrenhal, and that Lord Petyr Baelish had, by some route, lost or sold the dagger, and that the dagger had now appeared in the hand of a man who had tried to kill a sleeping Stark boy. Petyr Baelish, Catelyn said slowly. Your childhood friend, my lady, Tyrion said very gently. Catelyn went white. Why, she said. That, Tyrion said. I do not know. I will find out. I do not wish to know, lady, but I will find out. There is no one else in the capital who could have turned that blade, I think, unless Baelish did it himself, which is possible. Ned looked at Howland Reed. Howland Reed nodded once. We have been wrong. Ned said quietly to the room. We have been wrong for a year. The Lannisters did not kill Jon Arryn. They benefited. They will not admit it, but they did not do it. Then who? Robb said. The one man, Ned said, who could talk a boy into falling off a tower and make the boy believe the fall was his own idea. Littlefinger, Catelyn said. Your friend, my lady, Tyrion said again, gently. Catelyn Stark sat down slowly in her chair. She did not weep. She looked at the fire. For a moment Ned thought she was going to rise and go from the room. She did not. She looked at the fire, and her face changed slowly as she looked at it, from a face that was frightened to a face that was angry in the particular hard way a Tully woman becomes angry when she has decided, finally and at great cost, that a man she used to love is her enemy. Ned, she said. Yes. When you ride south. Yes, I am riding with you. Ned, do not argue. If Petyr Baelish sent a man into my son's chamber, I will put my needle in his eye myself. Do not argue with me. Ned did not argue. And Jon, Catelyn said. Her voice changed on the name. Not much, only a little, the first time she had ever used the name in that room without the my ward padding it. And she knew she had done it, and she did not amend it, because she had spent too many years amending. Jon is not riding the King's Road south. Jon is going by sea, as Sir Daemon has arranged. I will not have him on the road while ravens fly from Littlefinger to every hedge knight in the Riverlands. He was not, Ned. Sir Daemon's ships, I said. Sir Daemon's ships. Yes, Cat. And when he comes south. Catelyn said very quietly, looking at the fire and not at Jon, he will come under his mother's name, not under mine, not under the king's writ, under his mother's. He is Lyanna Stark's son, and I will not have him creep into the south as my husband's shame any longer. I will not. I have done it for 14 years. I am done. Write to the king. Get a new writ. Write it the right way this time, Ned. I will sign it. Ned looked at her. Jon looked at her. Catelyn did not look back at either of them. Now go, she said, all of you. I am going to sit here a while. They went. Ned rode south 5 days later with a party of 200, including Sansa and Arya. Cersei rode in her own wheelhouse, which was enormous, which broke 3 axle pins between Winterfell and the Neck, and which delayed the progress enough that news from Essos caught them up at the crossroads north of Moat Cailin. The news was a single raven in Pentoshi black ink, from a friend of Doran Martell's in the harbor at Tyrosh. It said, 3 dragons hatched, confirmed by 4 sea captains. The mother is a girl, 16, Targaryen, silver-haired, with a name in the old tongue that means of the storm. She is on the move. Slavers have burned 4 ships. She is riding north. Ned read the Raven twice. He handed it to Howland Reed. Howland read it and folded it and looked up toward the sky where the clouds were moving slowly west over the Neck. I said it would be a storm, he said. Years ago. You did. It is a storm. Ned nodded. Send a copy to Robert, he said. Send a copy to Doran. Send a copy home to Winterfell. Send, he paused. Send a copy to Ye Harry's. Yes, my lord. Tell him, Ned said, to come south. Not by the King's Road, by the sea, Sir Daemon's plan. Tell him to come as himself. Tell him I have written to the king to amend the writ. Tell him the king has not yet answered. Tell him I expect the king to answer yes. Tell him, Ned looked at the horizon. Tell him his sister is alive. Tell him he has a sister across the sea. He will want to know. Yes, my lord. Howland Reed went to send the ravens. Ned Stark sat on his horse in the middle of the King's Road, in the bright, thin sunshine of the end of summer, and for a long moment he did not move. Behind him on the road, his daughters were arguing about a song. Ahead of him, somewhere down the road that went to King's Landing, a queen was waiting who would try to kill him before winter. Behind him, far behind in a castle whose stones his sister was buried under, a boy was reading a letter in the solar. Ned thought, not for the first time, of the oath he had sworn to Lyanna on the stair. Don't hide him, she had said. Let them hate him in the light. I didn't hide him, Leia, he said aloud to his horse. I am sorry I was slow, but I did not hide him. The horse, not understanding, flicked an ear and waited. Ride on, Ned said. They rode on. At Winterfell, the boy had read the letter alone in the Godswood. He had sat under the heart tree a long time. He had folded the letter into his belt. He had gone to the armory and taken his long sword off the rack. The one Mikken had forged for him on his 14th name day, and he had held it a long moment and set it back. He had gone to the solar and taken a small locked box out of the bottom drawer of the desk that had been his uncle's, and had unlocked it with the key he wore under his tunic, and had lifted out of it a small enamel pendant on a silver chain, a rose with a thorn across its stem, that Ashara Dane had given his uncle the night his mother died. He put the chain around his neck. He put the pendant under his shirt. He went out of the castle in the hour before dawn, with the White Wolf at his side and Sir Daemon sand a step behind and 12 other riders who did not ride under any banner. They took the northern road first for a day, and then cut west through the Wolfswood to the coast. At the Rills, 7 Dornish ships lay at anchor that no man in the rills had seen arrive, on the deck of the first ship. As the rill's coast fell slowly astern, Sir Demon Sand handed Jaehaerys Targaryen a folded paper. "My lord. Sir, a letter from my prince. He sends it to be opened at sea on the grounds that a letter read at sea cannot be returned. Open it." Sir Demon opened it. He read it. "My lord," he said, "your Uncle Doran welcomes you to the south. He has a bed made up for you at the water gardens. He has also had a letter from your father," he says, "which he is honoring concerning a name. He writes," may I read this aloud, please? He writes, "You will come to me as Jaehaerys of House Targaryen. You will ride as Jaehaerys. You will sit at my table as Jaehaerys. You will not hide under a second name as a kindness to men who have not earned your kindness. The king has agreed. The writ is amended. I have the new writ in my hand as I write this. My brother will send a copy ahead to you at Plankytown. The name on it is the one your mother gave you on her last night. Welcome home, nephew. Your sister lives across the narrow sea. When you are ready, you and I and she will meet. Until then, learn everything. Yours, Doran of House Martell, Prince of Dorne." Jaehaerys took the letter. He read it himself. He looked at it a long moment. Then he looked east. The sun was just rising over the water. Over the water, very far, in a city he had never seen. A girl of 16 with silver hair had ridden out of a red waste at the head of a colossaur, with 3 small dragons on her shoulders, bound for Yunkai and Meereen. She did not know yet that her nephew was on a ship. Her nephew did not know yet that he would meet her at the age of 17 on a plain outside Volantes, and that they would sit a whole afternoon on a carpet under a striped awning and speak of a mother and a father and a brother, and that she would weep once and he would weep once. And after that, they would not weep again together for a great while. He did not know it then. He looked east, and the sun rose, and Ghost rose on the deck behind him, and Sir Demon stood a half-step behind his right shoulder, and the wind caught the sail. "Set course for Sunspear, Captain." Jaehaerys said, "Aye, my prince." It was the first time a man had called him prince in public. He did not flinch. He had been waiting for it in a quiet way for 14 years. Behind him, on the King's Road, his father was riding to a city that would try to kill him. Ahead of him, across the water, a sister he had never met was riding to a throne that men would say was hers. Between them, in a ship of no banner, a boy of 14 with a wolf at his side and a rose under his shirt turned his face into the wind. And for the first time since he had been old enough to know his own name, Jaehaerys Targaryen, third of his name, felt it fit him. The 7 Dornish ships came about together. They sailed south.